we get it rolling on the Pig in a Pickle Crude Show on a Thursday. Good to see everybody. Glad to be back with you. We're talking Niners. We got Ryan Hensley in the house. And, of course, we're brought to you by Pig in a Pickle. Check them out. 2 locations in Northern California. They're open 7 days a week in Corte Madera from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., and they're open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. If you're like me and you live out in the East Bay, you need to get your barbecue, close to home. Check them out in Emeryville, open Wednesday through Sunday. Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue in Northern California. Try the brisket and the brisket chili. I'm just saying. All right. Ryan Hensley's back with us by popular demand. He's blowing up. He's adding all kinds of subs on his channel. We're right in the midst of this 49er content creator contest, which I just got beat by Grant Cohn. What can I say?
I heard it was very close, and
I don't know if I believe that.
I didn't even make the tournament.
Half voting. I just vote. No, I'm just joking. But you know what? If you're going to lose to somebody, you might as well lose to the force of nature, the YouTube force of nature, known as Grant Cohn. Yeah. I got to think Grant wins the whole thing.
Yeah, I could see that being a high possibility. Absolutely. Yeah, Grant has a strong following. But a lot of people that watch him, they hate watch him, right? So how much people are going to vote for him, I'm not sure. But Grant's my guy. Really appreciate everything he's done for me.
Yeah, it is funny. There's an old saying in radio: you haven't made it till you have a solid core of an audience that tunes in every day, hoping that you'll fall on your face. And it's really kind of true. I mean, you have the haters be hating. But who do you, let me ask you this, outside of present company included, and let's take Grant out of it since he is such a force of nature. Mm-hmm. Give me a 49er content creator that you love his content, maybe even stumbled on him only recently, but you enjoy his content, and if he's going live or putting his stuff out there in whatever form, man, you kind of want to check it out.
Really 2 guys I watch, outside of Grant and yourself, there's Vish, of course, but really Eric Krueger and Jesse Naylor. Those are the kind of guys Jesse's been tremendous in my, outside of Grant, he's probably done more for me than anyone else as far as growing my channel. He's been a real steady, solid guy. And I also really like watching Eric Krueger. Not very new. Those guys aren't very new to me. I think Steph Sanchez is doing a fantastic job with her channel as well. So there's a lot of great content creators out there. And we're kind of fortunate that everyone's willing to just, come on each other's channel and help each other out. I think that's the right attitude. It's the attitude of, abundance, right? We don't need to feel threatened by each other. We can help each other and help each other grow and help each other have great programs and content. And I love that.
Yeah. I mean, the audience wins. I'll go, obviously outside of yourself, outside of Grant, outside of what we're putting out there. I like what Jesse does. Big fan of Vish. Really like what Vish does. I like Matt Barrows, from The Athletic. I just think that Barrows is just very, very solid. His content's really, really good. There's just a bunch. There's a bunch, really. Jack Hammer, I think, does some really good stuff. There's a number. Dave Lombardi does some good stuff. I mean, there's a lot of people out there, but I would say Vish, Jesse, Barrows, probably at the top of my list. I'm just getting into Wayne Breezy. I did a collab with Wayne Breezy yesterday, and my son was watching it this morning. He's like, "Dad, that was fire. It was fire." And by the way, Ryan, fire means get fire. Not a fire in the house, but right. Fire. You might, the way my son's referencing it, he's like, "You and Breezy, Dad, were fire, fire."
Yeah.
So there you go.
I like Wayne a lot. I've been trying to get him on. The schedules just haven't worked out yet, but I'm looking forward to getting him on one day.
He's the man from Connecticut. My sister lives in Connecticut, so I've got a special kinship to Wayne Breezy. All right, let's get right into the Niner talk. Another guy who's phenomenal, Brad Graham, who just lost to Mayoko slightly. And I hate to say this, I love Mayoko, but I think I'm going with Brad. Just saying. But anyway, he said that Chad Ryland, the kicker from Maryland, has followed him on Twitter, and that he thinks that it might be, that guy may be the 49ers kicker of the future. I mean, it's funny. We put so little time into the kicker position, but
Mhm.
it's so freaking vitally important. And I was thinking about this, and I'm like, I don't know. I watch some Maryland football, but I don't study kickers. I really just
Yeah.
don't. Never have. I don't study kickers. I don't study punters. Jake Moody out of Michigan is considered the best rookie kicker according to the list I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Um, Ryland is thought to be maybe an undrafted guy. He's a redshirt senior, kicked for the Terps this year. I'm okay if they really have a conviction on a Chad Ryland or a rookie kicker, but I don't know, Ryan, all things being equal, I'd rather pay the extra 5 or 600K, steal it from another spot of my roster cap and just bring Robbie back. He's never missed in the playoffs. You're intending on being in the playoffs. I don't want to get there and finally, get the quarterback thing right, get the roster right, get the defense right, get Shanahan right, get to the winner's circle and lose because Chad Ryland hit the upright because he's nervous. It's his first game ever, in the playoffs. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd rather pay extra cash and go with Robbie Gold. I don't know anything about Chad Ryland. What would you like to see the Niners do at the PK spot this year?
Well, let me help. Let me ask you so we can clarify. Robbie Gold, he's going to cost what, 5 or 6 million, right?
He made 4.8. The tag number for kickers is 5.4. So
Hmm.
I think you could probably get him for 5.2, 5.3,
Okay.
something like that. Maybe an extra 300, 400 grand on what he made a year ago.
And if we get a rookie kicker, fifth, sixth round, what we're talking, a
Hundreds of
million,
thousands. Yeah,
yeah,
not
hundreds of
far
thousands.
less.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could see the 49ers maybe thinking that's the way to go because of, they're a little tight with the salary cap right now. And so maybe that's the direction they go. But I also see your point and understand it. Robbie Gold has been nothing but solid in the postseason. And that's the most important thing you want from a kicker. So it does make me a little nervous going with the rookie at kicker. But, I'm sure there's a guy out there. It's just a matter of whether they can find him, whether they can obtain him. That's as good as gold, if not better, as good as gold, no pun intended. But yeah, it's tough because I understand the attractiveness of going cheap at the kicker spot. And I also understand the importance of bringing a veteran like Robbie Gold back for the postseason. But if you can find that rookie kicker that's just as steady and as consistent as Robbie Gold, then that's the ideal scenario because it's a lot cheaper. Question is whether you can do that or not.
Yeah, I mean, I just would hate to get into that Super Bowl or the playoffs, and it's like, Chad Ryland got nervous, and you had Robbie Gold for all these years. But if you can, if Schneider, the Niners special teams coach, is hot to trot on a rookie kicker, you know what? I'll defer to him. But truth be told, I'd rather go with the veteran. All right, the
Yes.
Niners made, I thought, what was a very interesting signing earlier this week, signing John Feliciano, the former Miami Hurricane, the former Raider. He was the center for the New York Giants this last year. There's all kinds of ways to look at it, from it's just veteran depth in the interior to, this is a hedge on Jake Brendel, to no, this is an indication that they're going to move Spencer Burford to right tackle. What's your read on Feliciano? He's basically been a starter throughout his entire career. Is he coming back to the Bay? He's here with the Raiders. Is he coming back to the Bay to be a backup and chase down the ring as a backup? Or do you think the Niners have plans that they're not necessarily telling us about?
So a lot of people have been rumoring that Burford's going to go out to play right tackle. For me, I was a little uncomfortable about that. I still might be a little bit, but to me, this Feliciano signing kind of makes me feel like that's the direction they're going. And the reason why is because I believe this guy is too good of a player. He, to me, is one of the top 5 linemen on this team, no question. So having him on the bench when you have a Colt McKivitz at tackle just doesn't sit right with me. So I could definitely imagine a Brendel center, Feliciano guard, Burford right tackle, offensive line next year, even though the Burford to right tackle proposal makes me a little nervous, but I don't know which makes me more nervous, Colton McKivitz at right tackle or or Burford. Either way, that's like the most concerning position, possible position for me going into the season, because the 49ers don't have many options at free agency at that right tackle spot. So in order to upgrade that position, they're going to have to do it in the draft. In order to really upgrade, at least short term, they're going to have to move up in the draft. And I don't know if they're going to do that. That's been not what I've been wanting them to do. But I also don't know if they're going to start a rookie at right tackle. So the signing of Feliciano, to me, he's one of the top 5 guys. I really like him. He's tough as nails. He's always been a starter. The signing of him to me means I really think he's been brought here to start. I don't think he's like the Brunskill that a lot of people think he is. I think he's came here to start. So I could definitely see a Brindell, Feliciano, Burford rotation. And I would hope that he starts because I think he's too good to be on the bench.
You know, the Burford thing's interesting. He played right tackle at Texas San Antonio. And it's like, when I asked him about it this year, he's like, yeah, I feel comfortable at tackle, but there's a speed element in the NFL game that just isn't there in the college game. And those guys are just coming flying off the edge. And heck, I felt like the speed off the edge kind of broke down McGlinchey's entire pass protection game at times, because he just had to kick out there so fast that he would leave himself open to the counter back inside. He would get clubbed, he'd go flying, he'd lose balance. But Feliciano's a great story. I liked him at Miami. My whole thing with offensive linemen is I don't care how they move that much. I care about how tough they are, because ultimately at the end of the day, it's a fight. It's a hand fight between 2 guys in a phone booth. And it's like, if you're not tough, it doesn't matter that you ran 4.8 over 5.1. I'll take the tough guy over the fast guy every day on the offensive line. Heck, you can't even get more than 3 yards down the field before, and they're going to call legal man downfield. So I like Feliciano as far as, this guy is really a tough guy, and he's gone through, life's dealt him some tough breaks. I mean, he's had his trailer home condemned as a kid. His mom battled multiple rounds of cancer and beat it. This guy had to live, at a friend's house, because he just didn't have that upbringing, that solid family situation. And he said he would go back to his trailer every few days because he felt guilty that he was sleeping on the floor at a friend's house. I mean, that's a lot for a high school kid to have to endure. It's tough if you have a parent who's, battling a life-threatening illness, and there's financial issues, and you're laying on some kid's carpet, and you're feeling guilt because your parents or your mom or siblings are at home in a trailer, and the trailer's been condemned. There's no electricity. I mean, life's not fair. Life's not fair. And it's like, sometimes when you read some of these stories of perseverance, and you're like, what? This guy made it to the NFL and is now a multi-millionaire and playing the sport that he loves. And, his family moved back, out of Miami, but he stayed at Miami because he wanted to play for Miami. So now he's separated from his family. The guy's been through a lot. And I just think then you watch him and he's tough, and he'll fight you. There were some great clips of Feliciano and Hargrave going at it in the NFC East this year. I don't know. I'm not sure if Feliciano's going to share time with Burford and McKivitz is going to be there at tackle and they're going to go get somebody else in the draft to, kind of compete with McKivitz, or if they feel good about Burford and Feliciano could be the full-time guy, or if it's just a matter of giving them flexibility to go in whatever direction they want to go in the draft. But overall, I love it because he's a really solid offensive lineman. And you're covered at center if Brendel goes down. You're covered at both guard spots if either Banks or Burford go down. And maybe Burford can transition to be a starting right tackle, and Feliciano is your starter full-time at right guard. But I like it. I don't know what kind of dollars they doled out to him, but big, tough, broad offensive linemen with experience are always appreciated.
Here's a hypothetical I don't think I've heard anyone ask. It just kind of occurred to me. But Feliciano has played left tackle, left guard, center, right guard. The only place he hasn't played is right tackle. Is it possible that this is the year he does that? Do you think there's any chance at all that they move him out to the right tackle spot?
I mean, it would seem like he just, if you look at his build, man, he just looks like an interior guy. He looks like a center. He looks like a guard. But you know what? We've seen other interior linemen kick out to right tackle and do very well. I'll say this: he would stand up as a run blocker. I mean, I think he could give you a real road grading type right tackle. I just think that you'd have to help him all the time against the best edge rushers. The best left defensive end edge rushers, I think, would eat his lunch.
Yeah.
That's just my guess, but I don't see that. I don't, the tackle position's gotten so specialized in the NFL that you don't, like, you see guards at 330, you'll see tackles at 290 standing right next to him. It used to be House Ballard, when he played for Buffalo, was the tackle. He was the right tackle. It used to be the tackles were these monster, massive guys. Now the speed is such a element of the game that the tackles have to be kick out, pass block guys with great feet. Like, you'd be better off with like a really strong converted tight end out there than you would moving an immobile center out there. So I don't know. I'm not really sure, but it is interesting how the O-line's gone from the behemoths are now the guards and the tackles are now kind of like light, quick, guys with great feet. Guys who are big bodied guys, let's say 290, 295, but not 380. I mean, like this Dawan Jones from the Buckeyes, he's 6'8", 380, and he looks just like a monster. But, I was talking to a buddy of mine. He's like, Krug, he's a guard. He's not even going to play right tackle. He just doesn't have enough movement ability to play right tackle. So we'll see. We'll see. It's a changing landscape on the O-line, and really not just the O-line, the entire NFL, and it's all predicated on their love of speed, and more speed.
Let me ask you a question, Larry, related to this. But do you think, there was a lot of talk during the offseason before free agency opened up about guys like Zakelj and Poe possibly making an impact. Do you think either one of those guys or even more have any opportunity to make an impact, or any opportunity at all to start on this offensive line?
Well, I would say Zakelj definitely has right guard or center potential. So, like, if you told me that they were going to share, right guard between Burford and Zakelj instead of Burford and Brunskill, that wouldn't surprise me, which makes the Feliciano move all the more interesting. Poe is so short. I'm not sure what his upside potential is. He's a great athlete, but, can he, to me, it seems like he's a center. I think he's a little on the small side for guard.
Yes.
Jalen Moore has got great ability, I think, but I only see him as a right tackle or a guard. But I think Jalen Moore has upside to get there. I think he has starter potential.
Nobody's
so I think
Zakelj
and Moore do. Poe, I'm not sure of. Poe might just be like, he might top out at, he's your backup at center and guard. He's your backup fullback. He's your backup short yardage guy. I mean, I could see him kind of being a backup, a versatile interior backup / fullback. I mean, have you seen him catch the ball? He's a crazy athlete at 280 pounds.
Yeah, I saw the tape he put out before the draft, and he called himself a center / fullback, and he looked great at it. So maybe he is the backup for Juice, or maybe he's the future at fullback. That would be interesting. I would love to see a beast like that playing one of the skill positions. So that's exciting.
I'd love to see Poe be utilized the way the Eagles, I'd like to see the Niners adopt the Eagles rugby scrum short yardage play and use a backfield of Juice and Poe. Juice is the halfback, Poe is the fullback. You snap the ball to Trey or Brock or Darnold or whoever, and push. Everybody push. I think Poe could be almost ideally suited in some ways for that. He had that crackback block in the preseason that just made everybody go, wow, because he got across the formation in a really good, quick amount of time, and then just put a shot on the guy and just floored him. The ability to translate speed to power is a big part of line play in the NFL. It's usually talked about defensive linemen, but we saw that from Poe. And that tells me that, he's an NFL caliber player because he can translate speed to power.
I'm honestly, Poe is one of the guys I'm really excited about. And like you said, at center, to me, I think his height is almost an advantage to him because I watched him in training camp, not in person, but on all the videos that were put
Right.
out of the one-on-ones in training camp. And Poe was immovable. And so his athleticism and he's just stout. I think he almost uses his shorter height and shorter stature as an advantage for leverage. And so I would be really excited about seeing him at the center position, but I don't want to see him anywhere else because he's so small. It would be strange to me to see a smaller player at a guard position. So I want to see him at center. Hopefully, that's how he does. But if he's a fullback, that's exciting too.
Well, he's one of the great personalities on the team too. He's hilarious. So the guy's really, really funny. He's always upbeat, very popular 49er. And CFO, we'll see if CFO can develop these guys, right? I mean, he's got some young players here, and he's considered to be a top tier NFL offensive line coach. Maybe he can develop a couple of these guys into regulars, or who knows? You never know. I mean, heck, Bob McKittrick did it for years, literally for years. Took day 3 guys, undrafted guys, Jesse Sapolu, 11th round draft choices, turned them into Pro Bowlers. So, it's a big technique position. CW has become a YouTube member. I always give a little clap for my YouTube members. So thank you there, CW, for joining the Krueger Show as a team member. Look forward to having you here. All right. Grant Cohn has brought up a topic this week, and he's kind of touched it with me, but he doesn't go too far down the road with me because I push back really hard on it. But he's asking the question, and he's asking it in every form imaginable. And he may have already asked you this question. He's asking the question, is Kyle Shanahan a good leader? Has he thrown that question to you? If not, I'm throwing it to you. What do you think?
Well, he's touched on it with me. Yeah, we've talked about it. I think, like everybody, he has strengths and weaknesses as a leader. So I think there's things that Kyle Shanahan does really well as a leader. And I think there's probably things he can improve on. And I think that's probably could be said for almost anybody out there, aside from a few just, generational talented type of leaders. I think there's things that Kyle Shanahan does that is fantastic. And then there's things I think he can improve on. One of those things, Larry, I will say is, I've been in management. I've never been at the level Kyle Shanahan is running, head of $1 billion organization, but I have been in management. And one of the things I've studied about, learned about as a leader is hiring the right people and giving them the freedom to do their thing. Whereas with Kyle, I feel like sometimes he is micromanaging a little bit too much. He takes on too much control where he could maybe just trust his instincts, trust his hires, and let them kind of run with things. And I think that would free up Kyle Shanahan to focus more on what he needs to focus on. Overall, I haven't seen things that, tell me he's an awful leader. There are some things communication-wise I would like to see him improve on. I think sometimes he's with the media and with the public, he needs to understand that he is the face of this franchise and that you don't have to be, he comes off a little arrogant sometimes in his answers with the media and with the press. He doesn't have to be that way necessarily. And I think that could help him a little bit. But as far as his teams goes, he's built very solid teams. His players seem to respect him and like him a lot. So as far as that's concerned, he seems to be a good leader. But there's some other things, like face of the franchise type things, management, hiring people and letting them, trusting them to make the right decisions. Those types of things I think he can improve on. And I think we all have areas where we can improve in all factors of life.
It's funny. It's like it's easy for us to kind of shoot holes in a guy who's on the podium. Mm-hmm. But what it must feel like to be there, whether you're Kyle Shanahan talking to the Niners, whether you're the White House spokesperson who's you've got a room full of people that aren't your friends, that aren't necessarily wishing the best for you. You know what I mean? That aren't necessarily on your team. And yet they're asking you questions, and they may have motivations behind their questions to make you look bad or make you look, inconsistent in your philosophy or your approach to the game. And so you don't want to be this paranoid jerk But at the same time, you can't sit there and be like, hey, these are my buddies.
Yeah.
They're not. Um, I look at the leadership thing from two things. From the strict, do you feel like the 49ers ball out and play hard every week
Mhm.
compared to what you see from other teams around the league?
Yes.
And I would say, I don't know if it's the players they get, the culture they establish, or if it's from Kyle. So I don't know if I should credit him with this, but I see a team that goes at it. I
Mhm.
mean, that brings it emotionally, physically, mentally every week. I don't see too many games where I'm like, yeah, they don't seem that into it. They seem like they're dialed down. They weren't ready to play. So that's one for me. I don't see the lack of like energy and drive and intensity. So
Mhm.
in that standpoint, I think he gets him ready to play. But is that him getting him ready to play, or is it John Lynch picking a room full of guys that are ready to play or that love to play? I think it all is kind of tied together.
Yeah.
Then I also have done interviews with the players, and players they won't come on the record with, I don't like Shanahan. They're not idiots. He's
Right.
controlling their playing time, which is essentially controlling their money.
Right.
But you know the way it goes. It's like they'll whisper in the corner of the room. Um, they'll tell you one thing with the camera rolling, and when the cameras stop rolling and the microphones are turned off, it's like, yeah, I'll tell you this. You do get a little bit of that, but I've never had a player ever turn on Shanahan in any way, shape, or form, like saying, yeah, he's about himself. But I do think he holds the quarterbacks to a really high standard. And if they fail, he doesn't cover them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that I bet you, like, if we asked Jimmy, if it was me, you, and Garoppolo in this live stream, I
Yeah.
think Garoppolo's, unfiltered view of Shanahan might be different,
Yeah.
because I think Shanahan's really tough on his quarterbacks. And
Mhm.
I think you need to really be tough mentally to deal with Kyle Shanahan as the coach, because he's going to get, when it goes well, it's like, hey, Kyle's a star. But when it doesn't go well, it's like, hey, the quarterback really effed up. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So sometimes there's that lack of accountability from Kyle. And there's sometimes I wish he would just more. I know he's hesitant to say, hey, man, it's on me. Because if you say that enough, then it's like people are going to start blaming you. You
Yeah.
say it's on me enough, then eventually go, yeah, it is on you, and you should be
Mm.
out.
Yeah.
Um, in my opinion, he could take 25% more accountability and say, you
Yes.
know what? It didn't work out. Quarterback X didn't get it done. But you know what? We share in responsibility for that because of this, this, and this. And I'll, at the end of the day, the buck stops with me, and I'll take the blame. I'm the big dog here. Whatever you got to say to take
Mhm.
true ownership. I'd like to hear a little bit more of that. But overall, I think his team plays hard. And I've never heard a player basically say, you know, to me, it's like the players like who they play hard for coach. It's like sales. You sell based on like and trust. And
Mhm.
like what you know establishes the trust, but who you are establishes the like. And I
Yeah.
just get the vibe that the players like Shanahan as a person. They
Mhm.
trust that his schemes work, and that they're playing really hard for him consistently. So that's kind of as far as I take the leadership thing. But if people want to say, hey, he's not as accountable as he needs to be,
Yeah.
I can see that too.
I think that's definitely part of it. And there's that old expression: "It's not what you say; it's how you say it."
Yeah.
And I understand the media is not necessarily on his side, but let's be honest, you're there, and you're smart enough to see how the media works throughout this country. Bay Area media is not too tough out on Kyle Shannon. There's a couple guys that'll throw in questions, Grant being one of them, that are pretty tough. But in general, you know, 49ers media is not too tough on Kyle Shannon. They don't ask him the hardest questions. I just think he can learn how to deliver the same answers that he's giving in a way that comes off less abrasive. Now, as far as the guys playing hard, I think the players like Kyle Shanahan. There's no doubt in my mind that they do. But I also think you touched on it. It's the players in the building. They do a really good job of bringing those type of players in. Kyle Shanahan is not really the emotional leader, right? He's not firing anybody up. It doesn't seem like to me. I think a lot of that comes from within. But of course, they do like Kyle Shanahan. I have no reason to think they don't. Like I said, I think we can all improve in areas. None of us are really perfect. I think there's things Kyle Shanahan can do better as a leader of the organization, and there's things that he does really well already.
I think the Krug show's perfect. I don't need to improve. No. But I think you're totally right. You're totally right. All right, let's jump to the latest signing. Austin Bryant has been signed as a defensive end coming over from Detroit. Really good player at Clemson on a great line. I mean, tremendous. He was probably about 265, 270 at the time. They say he's put on about 10 pounds. He's up to 280 pounds. He's had foot problems. He's had shoulder issues. He's had pectoral problems. He's had injuries. Last year, he missed 9 games. He had 0 sacks. There's an awful lot of Niner fans who are like, get an edge rusher. But they're not talking Austin Bryant. They're talking Ngakwe. They're talking Leonard Floyd. They're saying Frank Clark. What did you think of Austin Bryant to the Niners as a signing?
So I actually liked it. A lot of people, I thought it was a great signing, and I posted it on Twitter. People kind of ripped me. They don't see it. But the thing about him, when he's healthy, he seems to have all the athletic tangibles that you want from a pass rusher. He just unfortunately has not been healthy on a regular basis. And I think the way I look at it, the reason I'm happy about it is because I see him as a depth piece. I don't see him as a starting edge rusher, and I definitely don't see that that's not going to happen. I imagine Drake Jackson will be that guy that comes in on third down to rush the pass. So he's just a depth piece, but the 49ers are known for turning guys that maybe haven't performed at the level that they were expected to coming into the league, and they've turned them around. Obviously, the injury history is concerning, but it's not like a regular, it's not the same injury over and over again, like
recurring deal.
Yeah, so it could just be fluke accidents, and maybe this will be the year where he gets healthy, gets coached up, and he can put it all together. But I like his athleticism. And from that standpoint, I think he has a lot of potential. And if I'm just looking at him like a depth piece, I think he can definitely contribute.
The guy was incredible as a junior at Clemson. He had 8.5 sacks. I mean, he was on a pretty loaded line. I'll say this. I mean, one, he's a twitchy athlete who's got pass rush ability. Unlike Farrell, who doesn't have a lot of edge, bend ability, and pass rush lean and look, he seems more like a run defender. I like Bryant a little bit more as far as his talent. He's only 26. He's a little high cut, so his play strength and balance are not necessarily what you're looking at. Last year, he had 11 pressures and 125 pass rush snaps. He played 207 snaps over 9 games. He's got a 33-game career in the NFL. I'll say this. I mean, I don't defer to anybody usually, but man, I didn't know a whole lot about Kerry Hyder a couple of years ago. And man, Kerry Hyder's motor is unbelievable. And the one thing I do like about both Austin Bryant and Cleveland Farrell is that they both have motors that rev full bore. And I just think that's kind of a prerequisite to play for Chris. You gotta bring it. You gotta bring everything you got. I mean, if you watch him coach, he's on his knees, he's pounding the ground, he's swearing, he's screaming, he's becoming hoarse. I mean, you feel for him, like you're like, wonder, is this guy gonna freaking have a coronary out here on the field? He brings energy, and he demands that every guy in his D line brings energy. And at the end of the day, there's different levels of talent. But man, like Kerry Hyder is not one of the NFL's great defensive line talents, but he plays his ass off. He could literally get blocked. The O-lineman could be on top of him. The quarterback could be 25 yards away. Kerry Hyder is going to peek up. He's going to push the guy off him. He's going to get back to his feet. And damn right, he's going to chase that quarterback down to the whistle. There's something about motor, and Farrell's got a motor. Bryant's got a motor. And I'm ready at that point to kind of defer to Chris on some of these borderline D-line guys that don't have a whole lot else, in my opinion, except a motor. And I'm just going to say, hey, look, if Chris likes him, I'm fine with it. Yeah. But I'll throw it to you this way. Do you look at Austin Bryant and Cleveland Farrell as upgrades or downgrades from the trio of Menahue and Willis and Ebukam? Because when those guys walked out the door, 750 snaps walked out the door with them, and those snaps have to be replaced.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, I don't know if they can lean just on the draft. That it seems kind of risky. I almost would like to see them get one more veteran defensive end in addition to Farrell and Bryant before the draft begins. What do you think? How do you how do you kind of reconcile the 3 DNs that left and the 2 that they brought in?
Well, first, I think Forrester, we got to give him a lot of respect. He's probably one of the most underrated position coaches in the NFL. I know a lot of people recognize his talent, but he's that good to me. So I really like him. When it comes to, is it, as good as when those guys walked out the door? I think what we got to focus on is how were those players when they walked in the door? They weren't really heavily coveted when they came to the 49ers. Forrester is the one who brought the most out of them. And so I can see the same thing happen for these guys. To me, as a former coach, the motor is one of the most important things you could, want from a player. And so the fact that he has that motor and he also has that athleticism, as long as he can stay healthy, I really believe that Forrester can bring the most out of him and all of these guys. Very, very. When it comes to the 49ers, I'm pretty critical when I see things that I don't like. But when it comes to Forrester, I have nothing but positive things to say about him. Like you said, I trust his decisions when it comes to these guys. And I can imagine if you just have this athletic guy with a motor, as long as he can stay healthy, Forrester will make something out of him. And we could see him leaving next year because he's on a 1-year contract. We could see him being just like a Menahue going to get a big contract next year after working with Forrester for a year. He has that history of doing that. So, that's not a position group or coaching group that I just kind of like let them do their thing because I trust it. He has a track record.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, a great coach in the NFL, a great assistant coach is worth his weight in gold because they just get it done. And the best of them not only get it done, but they also have a great eye for talent. McKittrick had a great eye for it. Ray Rhodes had a great eye for talent. I think you're starting to see that with both the Niner O-line coach and the D-line coach. They have a pretty good eye for talent. They don't necessarily have to invest the first pick in the draft or their first round pick, though they have on the defensive side, but they haven't on the offensive side, and CFO's made it work. And now we're seeing them go for some cheaper guys. 49er Minded said we went to the Dollar Tree on 2 occasions to sign a defensive end. That pretty much tells me we're not going to sign a guy like Yannick Ngakoue. EMA Beat says we can't afford big ticket edge rushers. My problem is why guys with so much injury history, the risk is ridiculously high. That's a good point as well, but it's also about who you can get and how you feel about them. It seems like Chris really wants guys that he's familiar with. And when I'm talking about Chris, I'm talking about Chris Kocherik now. He wants guys that he's familiar with, and so he's probably familiar with Bryant. He was familiar with Hyder. He has certain guys that he kind of knows their ethic, knows their motor, knows their work habits, and I'll defer to him. Of course, to me, they still have to hit the D-line big time in the draft. I would say they have to get no less than 2, maybe 3 of their 11 picks have to be on the defensive side of the ball. All right, let's get on to the next topic. The next topic is, do you look at the 49ers, and this is kind of I've heard it argued both ways, and I can see it argued both ways. Are the Niners a team that is kind of descending and they're at the end of their championship window and the window's closing on them? Or are they an ascending football team whose window is really just starting to open and they don't have this, like, some people point to this year as like, man, there's incredible urgency. The window's closing. Trent's getting old. This has to happen. It has to happen now. Other people are like, hey, no, their window's open and it's just now beginning to open, and it's going to be open for the extended future. If you had to be on one side or the other, what side are you on?
Well, it's tough because I know I haven't took too many definitive positions today on the show, Larry, and I apologize, but I really do like to. I see things from multiple angles when I analyze. And the way I look at it with this team is when it comes to guys like Trent Williams, George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, they're towards the end of that window that we call a Super Bowl window. But my problem with that take is, to me, unless you have a top 10 quarterback, there is no window. And we don't have that yet. We haven't seen that that's the case yet. So my answer to that question is it depends on what happens with Brock Purdy and Trey Lance. If Trey Lance comes out and starts and is getting better every week and he's growing to this potential that we think he might have, then they're just starting the window right now. If it turns out that Trey Lance or Brock Purdy aren't the guy that we were hoping they were going to be, then that window is closing because they're losing those really talented players. Guys like Trent Williams don't grow on trees, right? He's like a generational type talent. So if you lose him, you're going to have a really, really tough time replacing him. So, if we're basing it on the entire roster outside of quarterback, that window is closing because, the talented guys are going away. The really good veterans, they're getting older. But if we're basing it on quarterback, there hasn't been a window because we haven't had that quarterback yet. Now, it may start opening this year if we see Trey Lance is that guy, or if Brock Purdy comes back healthy and he plays at the same high level he played at towards the end of the season last year. Then to me, it's okay. Now the time is now and going on because we got one or two great quarterbacks. That's what's needed for this team to have a real, true Super Bowl window, in my opinion, regardless of the rest of the roster.
The quarterback issue and the injuries complicate this question. No doubt. People are weighing in. EMA Beat says we got 2-3 years max, in my opinion. 187 says 3 years. They got 3 years. I look at it differently. To me, the biggest improvement in an NFL player is year 1 to year 2 in their career. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's year 2 to year 3, depending if they didn't play year 1, like an Aaron Banks, for example. Like Aaron Banks, in my mind, essentially this last year was a rookie. He didn't play his first year. It was like I don't want to say it was a wasted year, but it was like a red shirt year. He played this year. Now he has the entire year to kind of reflect on how he played, study the film of how he played, study what he needs to get better at, do the lifting, do the conditioning, do the off-season work. And now he's got like a start point. And I would bet anything that Aaron Banks next year will be better than he was this year, because he's now had a full example of himself and all the film and study, and he knows the league, he knows the division, he's got more confidence in his ability. And I look at the 49ers, and I counted this up. The every year, and we used to do this exercise with the Cardinals, we would sit in a room and we would look at our 53-man roster, and then we would have an arrow for that player. And that arrow was pointing down if he was in obvious decline, pointing kind of sort of down if he was in sort of decline, pointing just straight across if he was we didn't feel like he was declining nor getting better.
Peak.
Slight up if he was getting slightly better. Mm-hmm. And then straight up if the guy was undoubtedly getting better.
Yeah.
And so obviously anybody knows that you want a roster that's, if you got 53 guys on the roster, in an ideal world, you want 53 guys who are this or this, right? You don't want anybody who's in decline, and you don't want anybody in sharp decline. I look at this Niner roster, and I'm looking at no less than 15 guys that the arrow is literally pointing straight up. Mm-hmm. They're getting better. Here they are on defense: Kalia Davis, Drake Jackson, Demo Lenore, Marcelino McCrary-Ball, Samuel Womack, Quantrez Knight. I think the arrow is pointing up on all 6 of those defensive players. I think they're all guaranteed to be better than what they were this year. Mm-hmm. Now let's flip it over to the offensive side. And this is where I think there's as many as 9 or 10 guys. Jordan Mason, Ty Davis-Price, Brock Purdy, Nick Zakelj, Jason Poe, Tay Martin, Danny Gray, Trey Lance, Spencer Burford, Aaron Banks. I could probably throw Brendel in there as well because he only played for the first time last year, but he's a little older, so I won't have it straight up. I'll have it a little bit more like that. But that's 16 guys. That's a lot of talent where the arrow is pointing straight up, where there's just no doubt Trey's better. There's just no doubt that Danny Gray's better. I mean, I guess you could argue with Brock based on the injury, but overall, if the injury checks out, the arrow's pointing straight up. Jordan Mason, straight up. Burford Banks, straight up. That's a lot of players that are getting better. So I really believe that when you factor in where the NFC is, you got Philly, you may have Detroit, Seattle, maybe if there's another team in there that you like. Some people like Atlanta. I've heard people say the Rams. Fill in the blank on your other team. But to me, it's Philly is your one. Maybe Detroit looks like, and I can't believe I'm even saying that, but Detroit is, I agree with Jesse. He says that, they're kind of an ascending team. But that's it. And now you look at the 49ers. Now they got big quarterback decisions. We don't know if Trey is going to develop. We don't know if Brock's going to be healthy. We don't know that it's all going to work out. They may not have a quarterback, and that would derail this whole conversation. Yeah. But that aside, let's move that aside and put that in its own category. That's a boatload of guys who are getting nothing but better. And I just really think that this last year's draft class, including the undrafted guys, as I named a bunch of them there, the Tay Martins, the like Poes, the Zakels. Yeah. I believe in those guys. Marcelino. I really believe in Marcelino. That's a lot of guys getting better. And to me, when they show up in camp, I think we're all going to sit there. And we don't even know who they're going to draft and how they're going to round out free agency. But I think we're going to see them in camp and go, wow, this team is way, way better. Why? Because they've got 16 guys who are going to be better. And that's a ton. So as far as I'm concerned, I know I agree with you. The window is a lot of times tied to your quarterback. I kind of believe in the future of Trey, and I believe in the present of Brock if he's healthy, based on what I've seen. So I don't fret about the quarterback as much. I think they've even got Darnold in a good, place mentally, probably because he's desperate to turn his career around. But I just look at those 16 guys and I say, you know what? If they even have a mediocre draft, as long as they can get the quarterback position right, man, this team is going to be a force. Yeah. I mean, definitely as good as they were last year. I think they're going to have a 5-year run here where they're in multiple Super Bowls and are consistent Super Bowl contenders. So I think that window, because of this last draft, is wide open. And I think we saw it. 85 draft, they got Rice. 86 draft, they got depth. What happened? 87, they were awesome. 88, they won it. 89, they won it. They could have won it in 90. You could argue that next 5 years was the best run in the history of the team. This last draft was so deep that when it all fleshes out and these guys all fulfill their potential, I think it's going to take a year or two. I think we're looking at the deepest team in the NFC by far. So that's what I see.
Adam Peters, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, they build things the right way. They're kind of like, when you're talking about windows, they're kind of like Home Depot, right? They're good. They install their own windows, right? And the reason why they do that is because they don't build through free agency. They build through the draft, and they stack these compensatory picks. So my original answer had a lot to do with quarterback, but you take quarterback out of the equation. To me, the 49ers are really smart and really good at continuously building a strong roster year in and year out. And I don't think that's going to change as long as these guys are around. But as long as they can figure out the quarterback position, that's when they're really going to open this window wide open, right? But they're good when it comes, you take quarterback out of the equation, they're really good at building strong rosters. So in that regard, I agree with you.
Kalia Davis is the guy that I really can't wait to see this summer, because I saw him practicing at the end of the year, Ryan, and I was like, look at this guy. Look at him move at 295. And then I'm thinking, my God, wait till they get him out there with Bosa and all these guys. And now you add a guy who's 295 and is maybe the fastest 295 you got on the team. I mean, I'm looking forward to that. All right. What did you make of the Brandon Ayuk tweet? Here it is. 1K as the fourth option in a run first offense, couple emoji faces. I'm as real as it gets. Word to Lil Baby and ESTG.
Yeah.
I'm ready to stand on business every time. Year 4, 3 rocket ships going up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't speak emoji. Help me out.
Yeah. So first of all, I really like Brandon Ayuk. He's one of my favorite players on the offense. He's an amazing run blocker. He's works his butt off in the offseason. He was probably the best route runner on the team. He's probably the best overall wide receiver on the team. I really like Brandon Ayuk. He's not scared of anybody. I love that about him. So the things he's saying, he's right? Except for, I will say that even though he probably feels like the fourth option on the team, he got the second most targets on the team, I believe. So he's speaking out for himself. The curious thing to me in regards to this, Larry, is what motivated him to go to Twitter on that day and tweet this. I'm wondering, like, what spurred him to go do that.
What was the impetus for this comment?
Right, exactly. And I don't disagree with him. I'm a big Brandon Ayuk fan. He's probably one of my favorite players on the offense, if not my favorite player on the 49ers offense. So I agree with him. I think he's probably just kind of preparing. He's kind of a dog. Like, I feel like he likes to play with a chip on his shoulder, and maybe this is just his personality, his way of creating that chip. But I predicted Brandon Ayuk was going to have the best season of his career last season, and he did. And I think he's going to have an even better season this year. So he's pumping himself up. He's trying to get that payday, and he will for sure. Whether it comes from the 49ers or somebody else, it's going to happen at some point. But it's just kind of curious, why now? Why at this time? It seems like this tweet would be better for next offseason.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it's almost just like if you said, define what he's saying there. And maybe I'm getting the wrong thing out of this, but if like Brandon was sitting here, I'm like, Brandon, I'd be like, Brandon, is that your Keyshawn Johnson, get me the damn ball?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what it sounds like. And I think what he's saying there is kind of like, get me the damn ball, but everybody knows that I'm here for the W. And I'm here to win, and that's what I'm about. But I want the ball because I need to get paid. I'll say this. I want to see him start the season faster. Did you see his September numbers last year? They were terrible. I don't think he scored his first touchdown until like week 5.
Well, in fairness, I'll say the whole offense in September was pretty rough.
It was rough. Yeah. It was rough early. I mean, the monsoon, Trey gets hurt. Jimmy came in, looked like almost like that Denver game. It was like, uh-oh, is this season going down the tubes? Jimmy looks like he maybe was just kicking it on the sidelines doing nothing. He didn't look ready to play at all. And Trey was done for the year. And I'm sitting there going, the Niners may be circling the drain this year. And then somehow they kind of got it rekindled. And there's, I'll give them credit because they all kind of stepped it up, including Jimmy. If it came right down to it, John Lynch popped into your chat on the Ryan Hensley extravaganza and it's like, Ryan, do I trade Brandon Ayuk? If the Niners could get a late first round pick for Brandon Ayuk, would you trade him?
Absolutely not. I wouldn't
either. I think he's the best receiver. I think he'd be the best receiver in this draft.
He would. There's nothing wrong with the guy. He's essentially everything you want from a receiver, and he has the most valuable ability, which is availability. He never misses a game. He's a beast in the block game. He's not scared of anyone. He's a great route runner. He's got hands. He works his ass off in the offseason. He's a strong guy, man. He's ripped. I would not trade him. I mean, it would take a lot for me to trade Brandon Ayuk.
All right, couple more before we let you go. And this is I'm falling behind my pace here, so I want to hurry it up. Niners, this reports they were at the Stanford Pro Day looking maybe at Tanner McKee. They're supposedly, according to reports, looking at Logan Bonner out of Utah State. They've already met with DTR from UCLA. There's been a lot of speculation about Clayton Tune, Jake Hayner. Do the Niners draft a fourth quarterback in this draft? And what are you looking for in that player? Do you want speed? Do you want size? You want stature? You want a pocket passer? You want mobility like a DTR? What's the idea? Who's the ideal fourth QB? I know we haven't necessarily done a whole deep dive on all these quarterbacks, but without necessarily naming a name,
Mhm.
are there traits that you think are essential for that fourth QB?
Well, it's tough. When you're looking at a fourth QB, the chances of you getting everything you want is going to be tough.
Right.
The ideal quarterback for me is a cross. If you combine Brock Purdy and Trey Lance into one quarterback, you'd have an amazing quarterback, right? And that's what you want. Are you going to be able to get that in the fourth, fifth, sixth round? No, probably not. But there are guys like DTR and Stetson Bennett that do intrigue me. I like Brock Purdy a lot, but he's missing that arm strength and the height. Those are kind of the two things that bother me about Brock Purdy. Trey Lance is missing that experience. So it'd be great if you could find everybody. Guys like DTR are really interesting to me, although his consistency from an accuracy standpoint concerned me a little bit. Stetson Bennett has a gun, and he looked great in the draft. And those are two players I think they're going to be able to get in those later rounds that will still be available. And both of those guys intrigue me. So those are the two names I would look for. And if you can get either one of those, you might have something special.
Have you seen this kid? Uncle Salty says, what up, Malik Cunningham, or what about Malik Cunningham late on day 3? The Louisville quarterback. Now, he's not Lamar, but I'll tell you, he's got a good arm, and he's really got mobility.
Mm-hmm.
I like Malik Cunningham. To me, when I watch him, I'm just like, you know what? This guy has got some juice. I like what I see from him more than I like Tyler Huntley at Utah. And
Mm-hmm.
Huntley's found a way to make some money in the NFL. And I don't know. I'd be, also Uncle Salty throws this one. What happened to Stetson Bennett? I thought Stetson Bennett, clearly knows how to play. If you're looking for somebody who you might have to play, man, Stetson Bennett. But if you're looking for somebody to develop, man, Malik Cunningham would be. I'm so intrigued by what he is as a runner. I'd have a hard time passing on him, especially as the fourth quarterback, a developmental guy. I'd
Yeah.
rather have somebody with traits, either a big arm or great athleticism, and see if I can develop them.
Yeah. So for me, I like Stetson Bennett a lot. Malik Cunningham is intriguing. I know a lot of the NFL's going this way. A lot of people are going this way, but I'm not the biggest fan of the running quarterback. I like quarterback. My favorite
Like
quarterback
pocket passers.
Well, not necessarily. I like my favorite quarterback is Steve Young. I like quarterbacks that can throw from the pocket. Steve Young has 70% accuracy from the pocket. He's really good, but has the ability to scramble. But as far as like design and run quarterbacks, that's not really my thing. That's not what I want. I don't think that translates to longevity in the NFL. And so I'm not really a big fan of the running quarterback, but I do like quarterbacks that can run, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, you like guys who can do stuff off schedule,
Yeah.
but not necessarily guys who are just runners. You
Yeah.
want to see somebody who can do both.
Mm-hmm.
All right, couple last ones here. Okay, there's an awful lot of smoke around Lamar, and there's Jack Hammer wrote a piece. The Niners ought to go for Lamar. A lot of people suggesting that ESPN, man, Lamar on the Niners would be spectacular. I don't know what's going on with the Ravens and Lamar, but it sounds like it. At first I thought, well, the Ravens are just letting other people do their negotiating. Now I kind of think that Lamar seems like he's pissed off about it and maybe wants to move on. Some buddy of mine asked me in a text last night a question. I'm like, oh, I'm throwing that to Ryan tomorrow. And he's like, today, if Eric DeCosta called, that's the Ravens GM, and said, I will give you Lamar Jackson straight up for Trey Lance, would you do it? And I told my buddy, hell to the no, I would not do that. My reasoning, he's like, what, Krug, you're crazy, he's swearing at me. I'm like, look, I know Lamar had an MVP season a couple years ago, but Lamar has not proven that he can win in the playoffs. He wants a fully guaranteed contract. He's serving as his own agent. He hasn't been able to finish a season because of injury since 2019. Now, Trey's been hurt too, but I look at Trey's injuries as a little bit more freakish. I don't know that I'd rather take my chances developing Trey Lance than hoping to get Lamar from 3 years ago to come back for 2 or 3 more years and get a ring. I believe in Trey, the person, Not that I don't believe in Lamar, but I think Trey is a pocket passer who has scrambling ability, like you just described, where I think Lamar is a running quarterback who is only passable as a pocket player. And I think his track record kind of shows it. I'm also very concerned about the decline in the last 2 years in Lamar's production. So believe it or not, Tammy McDaniel, here we go. Krug, you're crazy. And I get that. But Uncle Salty says, Krug, you're crazy. EMA says Lamar wants 200 mil. Ryan, to me, when I think of Trey and I think of his supporters, I think of you first. You're a very strong supporter of Trey, and I respect the hell out of that. You have a conviction about Trey. Would you make that trade? Would you trade the question mark with maybe higher upside for the for sure in Lamar?
So here's
if you could, 1 for 1, no picks involved.
Here's the funny thing about it, Larry. Like, is the kind of quarterback I just described. Good arm, accuracy, runner when he needs to be, but a good pocket passer. That's who I think Trey Lance can be. That's the high side. That's why I'm intrigued with Trey Lance and his potential. But the fan in me, I think I would do it and I would regret it later on. But I think I would because I just want to play with my toys, man. I feel like Lamar Jackson would be super exciting with Kyle Shanahan. But I think I probably would end up regretting it later because I really do think Trey Lance has so much potential that he could develop into a really, really good quarterback in this league. And I just told you I don't really like running quarterbacks that much. but I would still do it with Lamar Jackson just because it would be a really exciting thing from a fan standpoint. Now, if I'm the GM of the team, I might have to think long and hard about that, especially with the cost it's going to go into Lamar Jackson.
I'm just worried about the injuries and like running quarterbacks. Steve Young, I wonder if Steve Young's career would have gone differently if he had played a ton early because he would have taken all those hits. And he basically had a regular career, but outside of, Michael Vick's career was kind of short-lived. Lamar seems like his best days have come and gone. I don't know. Russell Wilson has had this kind of late career, falling down and where his production's not the same. I just kind of wonder, can running quarterbacks have success into and through their 30s? And I just say no. I say no. I think that's why I'm so anti on Kyle saying, even labeling Trey as a dual threat.
Yeah.
Just call him a quarterback.
Yeah.
Just let him use his athleticism to buy extra time. Let him scramble, Kyle. Don't design quarterback power for him. Let's just let him scramble.
Yes.
And that's the way I want to see him utilized. And I would say no to Lamar. And I hear the people in here going, you're crazy.
I just totally went against everything I said and saying I would do it.
But you're
Lamar.
A fan and and you're intrigued. It's super intriguing, right? Yeah. Which is why people keep throwing it out.
Right.
I just think that Trey's upside is greater than Lamar's future.
I could see that being a possibility. Depending on how Kyle uses him, I could definitely see that. And I don't disagree with anything you said. So it's tough for me. I kind of just went against everything I believe in from a quarterback position. But Lamar Jackson would be extremely exciting with Kyle Shanahan for 1 year. But I feel like that you're kind of trading away the future if you do that.
Okay, one last one and then a couple chat questions and then we're done. Is Eric Armstead, who only had, and when I saw these stats, I had to look them up because I'm like, no way, that's not true. Eric Armstead had 11 tackles this last year and no sacks. Is that possible? Is that possible that Eric Armstead, now granted, he missed some time.
I thought he had one. And then one in the playoffs. No?
Was it one sack?
I think he had one, at least one, possibly two. I think he had one in the playoffs. Could have had a third one with Dak Prescott, but I don't know what he did there in the end zone. Instead of sacking him, he just I don't know what that was. But yeah, he hasn't played well. He's been injured a lot with that plantar. I'm not even going to try to attempt the second
fasciitis.
Yeah, there we go.
But would you say, okay, so much of his production is tied to the surrounding cast.
Yes.
And we've made this mistake in the past with Armstead where we're like, oh, he sucks. And it's like, no, he didn't suck. He's just playing on a line. He's playing out of position.
Yeah.
I like him more inside than I like him outside. That's for sure. But where are you on Armstead as far as his career? I mean,
Mhm.
I've heard people suggest that they should make him a cap casualty. Yeah, I'm seeing 10 tackles and no sacks.
Yeah, that's
No,
weird.
I'm seeing 11 tackles and no sacks. 11 tackles, no sacks, 2 tackles for loss.
I swear he had one. Maybe I'm tripping. Okay, so my thoughts on Eric Armstead is he's not worth what we're paying him. That part is for sure. Now he has the potential. He has all the talent in the world. He's been injured. I don't know what his deal is. A lot of that may be, like you said, his supporting cast. So my expectation, my hope is that the addition of Hargrave is going to help Armstead tremendously. When you have Bosa and Hargrave next to you, you got to be able to elevate your game. But if he doesn't elevate his game this year, they got to figure out something, because there's no way he's worth the money that the 49ers have been paying him if he continues to play at this level.
Yeah, I mean, they're paying him an awful lot. They're paying him an awful lot. All right, let's go to the chats that I starred. Of course, CW, new member. Congratulations. Thank you, CW. CW says, any thoughts on Jair Brown, the safety from Penn State? I like his game. I love him. I love Jair Brown. I think in a lot of ways, he was on the Bruce Feldman freaks list. He's a crazy athlete. To me, when you can marry athletic ability and collegiate production, you draft those guys.
Yeah.
This guy was the MVP of the Rose Bowl against Utah. He's a tremendous player. I think you can play him in the box. I think there's enough movement ability to play the deep middle. So, yeah, Jair Brown is one of my favorites going into the draft for sure. Quincy J. Larry, intro music gets me hyped. I'm going to make it my wedding music. My kid hates me, Ryan, because I'll use the same jokes over and over again. Sometimes when I'll hear like a rap song with just really crazy, over the top lyrics, I'll say, oh yeah, that was the song your mom and I danced to at our wedding. And my kids will be, Dad, shut up, it's not funny.
Yeah.
Todd Labor says, tonight is my first saxophone practice with Mr. Collins. Never played an instrument before. Wish me luck, Niners Nation.
Good luck,
There you
Todd.
go.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton played the sax.
There you go.
CW, Ikena Anechikuwu, I guarantee I butchered that, plays hard. This is a kid from Rice. He might be interesting in the later rounds, maybe the 5th. All right, I'll check him out. 49er minded. We went to Dollar Tree on 2 occasions to sign a defensive end. That pretty much tells me we're not going to sign a guy like Ngakwe. Kind of agree. Sargon, Hall of Famer Larry Krueger in the house. If you'd said I was shit, I probably wouldn't have read it. Chiguayo makes a donation. The odds are that the Niners move up. If they do, what is the first pick? That's interesting. Is there a player that you really like that there's no chance lasts to the 3rd round that you would advocate a trade up for?
Either one of those Ohio State offensive linemen that are coming out. I like both of them. I take either one of them.
Jones and Paris Johnson.
Yeah, either one of those guys would make me really happy. Those are guys that are kind of on my mind, hoping the 49ers can move up and get.
I'll say Michael Mayer, the tight end from Notre Dame, and Isaiah Foskey, the defensive end from Notre Dame. I think both those guys are blue chip players, and I would trade up for them. West Coast 57257. Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold are battling for being the quarterback of the future. Trey Lance is out of here, writing on the wall. I don't know what that's based on. Do you look at the Darnold signing as a bad omen for Trey's development, a bad omen for Brock's health? It seems to be a hedge. It's probably a hedge on one of those two factors. Either one would be awful for the Niners if Brock were not healthy, or if Trey, they didn't believe in his development. Do you look at Darnold as a hedge, or is it just, hey, you know what? They're being consistent. They said they wanted to get the best quarterback they could afford. Darnold's the best quarterback they can afford.
I mean, it's pretty simple, man. The 49ers have had a long history of injured quarterbacks. They got the best one they could as an insurance policy in case something happens to Trey Lance or Brock Purdy, or neither one of them, play at the level that we expect him to. But to me, Sam Darnold's he's just here as an insurance policy, and they got the best quarterback. I mean, what? It's really shouldn't even be a question. The 49ers went through 4 quarterbacks last year, so they went out and got the best quarterback they could. It's that simple to me.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's also about no more quarterbacks who are too young or too old. Get guys in their prime. Get guys that you feel like you can win with. The games are held now. So what different? Don't get a guy who 3 years ago used to be something, Matt Ryan. Don't get somebody who's 3 years from now is going to be something. Get somebody who you feel like you can win with as your third guy. If you want to go fourth, developmental on traits, I can, that's a different deal. Khalil Young, Larry, could we draft Demario Douglas from Liberty? My man is shifty quick. He is. My goodness, stop. That guy was like the king of tag at recess. I mean, you can't seriously. I mean, the stop, the start. He kind of reminds me of Kadarius Toney from the Chiefs. It's like the human joystick. It's like good luck trying to tackle that guy. He's tremendously explosive. Artur Gazarian. Would you take Malik Cunningham over DTR? Probably take DTR. It's probably a little bit more consistent.
Experience too. That his experience level is great. He's been there for a long time.
He has. He's been really good and also when he's played more big time college football, he's a little bit better of a passer. I think he's a much more refined player. Also, I've seen consistent rhythm from DTR this year, where I saw inconsistent rhythm from him. So that tells me that he's getting better. So I think the arrow's pointing up on DTR. The Cunningham pick would be just more like a gamble on high-end movement ability and arm strength. Graves says Darnold is insurance, which I probably would agree with. EMA says, Larry, I'd like to submit a few of my instrumentals for any content you see fit. Love to collab, my man. Hey, let's do it. One more on the super chat. Fish and chips. Don't forget there's another quarterback coming soon also. Who's he referring to?
Rookie draft, I imagine.
Yeah. Some quarterback. Quarterback. I'm sorry. Artur Gazarian.
There you go.
Says, Artur. Man, Larry's always butchering my name. I'm sorry, Artur. Damn it. I'm sorry. Give me a little phonetic deal, and I'm the kind of guy that I'll literally write it down, and I'll make sure I get it right. And then he says, haha. Nah, he did okay. I'm just messing with Larry. Atomic. Yeah. Larry, are you on drugs? Not right now. But give it time. All right. All right. Good stuff today. Ryan, tell me what you got cooking on your channel the rest of the week. I know you're in the grind. I saw that you picked up 300 or 400 subs. I know you're working it. You're putting out all kinds of great content and collabing with people and putting out not just sports content. There's even some like real estate content and your advice and that kind of thing.
Every now and then I'll put something out. Yeah, I mean, I'm a real estate broker, mortgage lender. I sell solar. So every now and then I'll talk about that, but it's 99% 49ers content. And I'm doing shows on Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. I've had over 60 guests on my show over the last 6 months, all of your best 49ers content creators. So really proud of it, working hard on it. Had amazing Larry Krueger on my show. I had Grant on Monday, Stats. I mean, just the best content creators in the community come on my show, and just really proud of it. So if you guys get a second, please go subscribe.
Yeah. Ryan and I just met a few weeks back, but man, I'm a huge fan of his content and his thought process when it comes to the Niners. I think you're really solid, man. You're not a homer, but you're not just dogged as far as like, I can't see any anybody who disagrees. I won't consider it. You're open-minded, but you have strong feelings. And I love chatting it up with you and chopping it up with you and having you on here. So we always love having you on and have a great rest of your day. And maybe next week or so we'll be able to do it again. And anytime you need me on your channel, just say the word. I'll be there. And good stuff, man. Have a great day.
Thank you, man. Always a pleasure to be here. Big fan of yours, man. Thank you very much.
Have a great one. The great Ryan Hensley. And Ryan was not included in that bracket, and should have been. Absolutely should have been, because his stuff is really, really good. EMA says, great work, Ryan. Cool as a fan. Yeah. No, I mean, I what I really like about Ryan is just that, he's lived a little. He's got, he's that's a Gary Radnich line. He's lived a little, but What I mean by that is he's a smart guy and he's got perspective. So I like it. I like it. And sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. But, it's always civil. Let's do this. I'll play a couple spots and then I'm going to come back and hit the chat. There's some good questions in here. Fish and Chips said he voted for me. GTC Reels talking about the great Ragu Radnich. And then we got a question about Damon Bruce. So we'll hit that in just a second. But we have to remind you that we are brought to you by Pig in a Pickle. Check them out in Emeryville. Open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. Open 7 days a week in Marin County. I love me some Pig in a Pickle. The brisket is second to none. Like I don't even do brisket anymore just because I've had it at Pig in a Pickle and I'm like, fuck, I can't cook it the way they cook it. But Damon and Mary, they work at it. They got a phenomenal restaurant, Pig in a Pickle, 2 locations, Corte Madera. They're right there centrally located in Marin County. They're open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day. But I will say this, little hint. It's a barbecue place, and it's a real barbecue place. So what does that actually mean? That means you can't just walk in there at 7:45 and be like, all of this and all of that and all of this and all of that. Why? Because they cook it and it's gone. And once it's gone, it takes hours to cook it again. So they'll smoke the brisket for 14 to 16 hours. The brisket that you're eating tomorrow is literally in the smoker at dinner time tonight. Starting, that's how long this process is. So they're a real barbecue place. So when the food is gone, it's gone. So don't get there at 7:45 and say, I want everything, because they'll be like, hey, dude, we're out of chicken and we're out of brisket. So if you can get there early, do. But check them out in Marin County in Corte Madera. The the potato chips cooked in the beef fat, only in Marin. They don't serve them in Emeryville. Amazing. They make them once a day and then they bag them up and they sell them. The best potato chip I've ever had. It's not even close. And I asked Damon, I said, what's the key to these potato chips cooked in the beef fat? And he's like, well, the beef fat makes them really flavorful, but we put the same rub that we put on the barbecue chicken. We put that on the potato chips and they're unfreaking believable. I mean, just like, what? You got to be kidding me. If they bag this and put this at Safeway, these chips, people would be coming in just for these chips. I mean, that's how good they are. Anyway, check out Pig in a Pickle. They're in Marin County. They're in Emeryville. What does it look like if you're in Marin County? They're right there in the mall. Here's what it looks like from the outside. Also, big thanks to Casey Bateman and the good people at Telmetrics for being a sponsor of the Krueger Show. Telmetrics.co, Telmetrix.co. If you hurt yourself, but you don't want to go to urgent care or the emergency room or the hospital, you're fearing huge bills. You're like, I'm hurt, but I just need a little assistance on trying to get myself back to health. Let's just say, you hurt yourself. We're all weekend warriors. Heck, I'm 53 years old now. So, there's times I get up in the morning and I'm like, I'm hurt and I have no idea what I even did. It's sad. It's very sad, actually. I probably shouldn't even talk about it. But anyway, Telmetrics.co. If you're looking to rehabilitate from one of your injuries and you just need a little assistance, try this as a resource. You're really going to like it. Telmetrix.co. It will give you ways for you to rehabilitate your injuries without going to the ER, without incurring lots of hospital bills. Thanks to Casey Bateman and the good people at Telmetrics for being a sponsor of the Krueger Show. All right, welcome back to the Krug Show. Special thanks to the sponsor of today's show, New York Style Italian Sausage. Man, I'm a huge fan of New York Style sausage. Just did a little spaghetti sauce last night for the family, threw in some Italian mild in there, and it just was awesome. I mean, absolutely the best. This product is the best sausage you're going to find in any grocery store, and you can find it in any store. Costco, Safeway, Food Max, you name it. Anywhere that you basically buy your groceries, you're going to find New York style Italian sausage, often imitated, never equaled. That's their saying, but check them out online. NewYorkStyleSausage.com, and a quick message from them.
So New York Style Sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never gonna deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
And do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it, guaranteed.
All right, welcome back to the Krug Show on a Thursday, and it's roughly 12:30 in the afternoon. Thanks to Ryan Hensley for joining us. Everybody needs to sign up for Ryan's channel. It's the Ryan Hensley Show on YouTube. He's fantastic. Join us tonight at 6 o'clock Pacific. Jesse Naylor is going to be in the house tonight. And, I've only done like 3 or 4 hits with Jesse, and I love having him on, man. I think he's fantastic as well. I mean, all these content creators are all individual, so, I love chopping it up with Vish. I love chopping it up with Grant, Ryan, Matt Barrows. So many of them are good. Jack Hammer. But, Jesse is just grounded. He's solid. It's funny. It's like he's on the other side of the country in Florida, and I'm out here on the West Coast. We're talking Niners. I feel like he's sitting right next to me. And he just has a lot of really interesting takes. And, we don't always agree. And sometimes we disagree vehemently, but it's always civil. And I always feel like I'm getting something out of the conversation. And I really enjoy it. So, dude, sign up for Jesse's channel. He's phenomenal. He's got lots of followers and great content. And he'll be with us tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, for a little more Niner discussion. We talk a lot of Niners on this channel, have you noticed? Why? Because the Niners have an incredible story, and it just never stops. And then when I look at the traction that the 49ers get with the audience compared to when I talk about the Giants, who I love to talk about the Warriors. We did a live stream last night with Cyrus Satzis and Frank Red and Danny and the boys. Ballers sometimes in the house. The great Ryan Smith sometimes joins us. It's all good, and I love talking Giants, and I love talking Warriors, especially in the playoffs, but it all kind of takes a back seat to the passion and just the size of the Niner audience. I mean, there's just an awful lot of people who are really engaged on the 49ers, and as a former NFL scout, former CFL scout, I love talking football, and I can do it year round, and I do. So keep it locked right here on the Krug Show for all of your Niner coverage. Also, we always check towards the end of the show what we got going up, and check the Krug Show on YouTube for some of the videos that we're putting out. My son is doing an incredible job at clipping up some of our best shows and some of our best stuff. Like I know today he edited some stuff from the Wayne Breezy live stream, put up some videos. So check out the videos that young Kev Krueger is putting up there. He's doing a great job. He's a great kid, goes to Cal Poly, and in his spare time helps dad out. But anyway, I'm looking up right now exactly where we are sub-wise, but we're approaching 16,000. All right, let's hit the chat while I'm waiting on my phone to reload here. For these comments. Atomic Testicles. Sounds explosive. Says, Larry, what's Damon Bruce doing? He's plotting his next maneuver. He's planning his next project. Damon's a really talented guy. He was let go by 95.7 The Game. It was very much of a surprise to him. He, as I said, he's very talented. He was my producer in 1995. He used to come in at the commercial breaks and be like, I'm going somewhere. I'd be like, shut the fuck up. Go back in the other room. But yeah, he had talent. And we used to tell him after the show was over, yeah, we know you got a little talent. You got a little talent. But he's a talented guy, and he's going to have a lot of different options in radio, out of radio, in on YouTube, outside of YouTube, maybe on television. So he's just right now, just kind of doing some soul searching, getting out and seeing what's out there, and figuring out what he wants to do. Will we be collabing? Possibly, but it's really up to him. And if he wants to, we can do a show. And if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. But yeah, we're talking about it. He's considering all of his options, and he's right now consulting with his agent, and just kind of going through what's out there. I don't think Damon is the kind of guy. He's got 2 young kids. He's got a wife that works here. They own a home in San Francisco. I don't think he's in a real rush to sell it all and go live somewhere else. So I think he probably would like to stay in this market, but there's no guarantees on that. And we'll see. I'll talk to him in a couple days, and we'll see where his head's at and if we want to collab together on something. And if so, that will be exciting. Fish and chips. I voted for you, Larry. Fish. There you go. Thank you. Atomic Testicles. Maybe a team up with Damon. No question mark there, but I threw it into a question. Possibly. You'll see. GTC Reels. The great Gary Radnich. 49er minded. Gary and Larry were classic. EMA says, Larry, where can I submit? Where can you submit? Well, follow me. Why don't you do this? Follow me on Twitter. And then send me a DM. Maybe follow me on Twitter and let me know, and I'll follow you back so then you can DM me. And then we'll just hook up in the Twitter DMs. By the way, I'm wearing the Krueger Show t-shirt. I still have a bunch of them left, roughly 100 or so. They come in size large, XL, double XL, and triple XL. If you want one, they're $35. Just DM me, give me how many you want and what your address is, and then I'll give you my Venmo. You can send me the money. I'll get it out in the mail to you within the day. You should get it within a few weeks, or within a few days, I should say. And check it out. Atomics is Pete Franklin, the king. He was great. He's no longer with us, but he was great. Fish and chips. It's Nails and Larry now top 2. The rest can fight for ever-changing third spot. Grant was demoted. Who's Nails? I don't know Nails. I have to look that one up. EMA beats Burford should get burn at, or I think he means run, at tackle. He's the most athletic lineman next to Trent. Great, talented young fella. We got Digital Drew hanging in the green room. Let's get to him in a sec here. C-Dub says, Slater, Haniger, and Craw all on the injured list to start the Giants season. Can't tell you I'm shocked, Larry. I'll say this. I was down in spring training. This is the Giants. See how thin that is? See how thin that piece of paper is? They're like a very, very thin. Tried to give you my illustration there. I don't know if it worked. Yeah, very thin. If the Giants, could the Giants have a decent year? Yeah, if everybody stayed healthy. But guess what? Nobody ever always stays healthy. So they're not going to stay healthy, and that's just it. Fish and Chips has this one. Don't forget, Larry, organize the live vlog at Pig in a Pickle. Viewers will love it. Okay. We can do that. Uncle Salty, on the road again. Good show, Krug. Later, faithful. And we get this super chat from Todd. Lamar won't get signed by anybody. He's too immature. He wants so much money and nobody wants him. He can't win a championship. There are players that are hungry for a championship that make less money than him. Wow. CW says, let's talk baseball, Larry. I like to eat. Digital Drew, dang it. Stupid meetings. I missed it again. Oh, nobody's here. And on that note, we add him to the stream. Digital, thanks for those codes for the Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, my pleasure, man.
In the words of my 17-year-old, Dad, that's fire. There you go.
I love translating my kids' slang. Like what is that? Okay, on to Urban Dictionary. Sometimes it works out, and sometimes you got to bleach your eyes. You're like, oh, I will not be able to unsee that nonsense. So it's been a minute.
As you're sitting here, we should tell everybody, as Digital Drew is sitting here, I put the video call stream in the chat because I thought, we haven't done video calls for a few weeks, and I love the video calls. I just think it's kind of like a better version of sports radio. It's like sports radio taking calls, but you actually get to see the people and it's more interesting and it's just better. So I'm glad that you hit the connection and got in here. How's things in Chicago?
Going well. Shockingly warm. I think it's 58
really?
Today or 56 or something like that. We're mild. You guys are getting hammered, but yeah, we're just like, hey, it's not too bad.
We had a cyclone here. Trees were down, water everywhere. It's just been I guess we're still in a drought here, Digital Drew, but man, I don't know.
Not for long. Just wait until the spring hits and the 58-foot snowpack melts and makes its way towards the coastline. Good luck.
Well, I'll say this. One of my favorite. I don't know if you how much time have you spent a lot of time out here?
Oh yeah. Well, not in the last decade or so.
Okay. But... Well, one of my favorite vacation spots. I'm a big Tahoe guy in August, and one of my favorite things to do is to go rafting. And the rafting season has been very damaged by the low water levels. The rafting this year is going to be explosive. It's going to be fun.
Insane, actually.
I love
I used to go.
River rafting is really a good time.
Yeah, I used to go up there on the American River and do some stuff.
There you go. North Fork of the American River. If you can get it before the 4th of July, you're really cooking.
Yeah.
Late in the year,
awesome.
Man, you might have to actually kind of use your upper body to kind of move yourself down. But before the water dries up, man, what a great time in the summer.
Good times. So I know there's some people in the chat who want to talk baseball, but I don't think anybody's really wrapped their head around the Giants or just baseball season quite yet. And given how many moves and the drama associated with the Niners, it's really hard to get them off our radar. I think the NFL has done an amazing job in just extending that season, even after the Super Bowl. We're right into free agents. So with that in mind, is there anybody on the open market right now you think the Niners are still targeting, or who would be a good fit given their current needs?
Well, I would like to think they need more defensive end talent, and there's an awful lot of guys out there. I just don't really see them being able to afford those price tags. I just feel like all those guys, Ngakwe, Leonard Floyd, Frank Clark, they're all hoping for the big payday. And I don't think the 49ers are going that direction. I could see, at this point, I feel like almost instead of them recruiting players, almost like players might have to recruit them just for, hey, you know what? You guys look like you're on a Super Bowl trajectory. I'd like to be a part of that. I'll take less to come there. I could see them maybe benefiting off of a signing like that or two. I would say they're probably going to sign 2 or 3 more free agents, but I don't think I would be very surprised if they were big name guys. Austin Bryant is, not the best defensive end in the free agent market, but he's what they could afford. And I just think that they have roughly the same amount of money that they're going to need to sign their draft class. So they would have to redo somebody else's deal to kind of get further under the cap and make more additions. But yeah, Where do they really have a need? I mean, now they got Feliciano. I think they could probably use like maybe a right tackle, maybe like a Tom Compton, somebody like that, somebody who's played there before but isn't going to cost you a lot.
A
I think
vet
that
who
is
can plug
one.
in.
Maybe
Yeah.
one more defensive end if they could get the right guy at the right price. Maybe one more defensive back if they could find either the right corner or safety at the right price. That's and then kicker. I think Robbie or a veteran kicker or maybe no kicker. Maybe they'll go into the draft and be happy to draft a kicker. But
Or
I
sign
think
a
most of the heavy lifting's done.
Yeah, it's signing an unsigned free agent kicker out of some college. I get them going that route. I know the Niners made a huge splash on the defensive line front, but something that I don't see too many people talking about is how many they actually lost as part of their depth. Do you think while the talent ceiling of their starting four up there and overall their starting seven up there is better than it was last year, do you think their depth takes a hit and for the full 60 minutes, they're as effective as they were on that front seven last year?
Well, I'm not worried about the Aziz defection because I think Marcelino McCrary Ball is a tremendous player. And I can't wait to see him. So I don't think they're going to miss Aziz. They are going to miss Ebukam, and they are going to miss Amenahue. Jordan Willis, maybe to a little bit of a lesser degree, but definitely they're going to miss those guys. I mean, right now, they've got Bosa, Armstead, Hargrave, and a question mark. Is that going to be Cleveland Farrell? Is it Drake Jackson? Is it Austin Bryant? Is it Alex Barrett? You see, I actually think they have, I mean, the nice thing is they have 11 picks and they don't have tons of needs. So they could go with 3 or 4 edge rushers in this upcoming draft and be in a good situation. I did a mock last night and I had them going with Zach Harrison out of Ohio State, Dawan Johnson out of Toledo, Byron Young out of Tennessee, Jose Ramirez out of Eastern Michigan, and Ali Gay at LSU. So I had them adding five D linemen off the edge.
Wow.
And that sounds crazy, but they like to show up in camp with like 15 viable defensive line options because there's injuries and just there's all kinds of problems. Guys fail. There's some guys who are just not ready. So I would say right now they're about 10 deep on the D line. And so they could probably, and they're really loaded at tackle, right? They got Hargrave and Armstead. They got Givens and Kinlaw. They got T.Y. McGill. They got Kalia Davis. I mean, they're 6 deep on the defensive tackle spot. Depending on what they're going to do with Kinlaw, of course. They might trade Kinlaw. But I think they're pretty fortified at tackle, especially when you look at the fact that guys like Cleveland Farrell and Austin Bryant could play inside in that 4D end front. What they really need is they need dynamic edge rushers. So, I think they need a starter opposite Bosa. And maybe Drake Jackson's that guy, but maybe not. And I think they need at least two or 3 more other guys. So, yeah, they went. I think they made the right move, Drew, in that they used their money on Hargrave because the interior guys are so hard to find, and you could take 3 or 4 different interior guys in the draft, and maybe none of them ever really command double teams like Hargrave commands day one. So instead, they spent money on Hargrave, but you're right, they had to then allow their 3 good young defensive ends to all just walk away. And so now they really have to go replace them. The good news is the draft is loaded at defensive end. And I think that there'll be great defensive ends that they can get in every round of the draft. So, in a way, I really like their plan because I thought the D tackle market, while there's some good players there as well, it's much more speculative. And it's much more kind of like there's no for sure guy who's going to be anywhere near where they pick. So spending big to take Hargrave away from the Eagles and add him to what you have, I think was a terrific move. It was a calculated risk, but now they have to go into the draft and actually hit. If they take 3 defensive ends in the draft and all 3 of them get cut at the cut down because they're not good enough, they could be in a world of hurt this year. They don't just need to draft defensive linemen. They need to draft defensive linemen and have those guys make the roster and have them be able to play in a rotation. So, it's hard sometimes to project which rookies are ready to roll and which ones are going to take time. But I like the way they set it up for themselves. Go get the for sure tackle and then go hunt for some rookies at the end.
Yeah, for sure. And there's still a couple names out there. I saw in the chat a couple people mentioning Leonard Floyd. I'm not sure if Clowney has been signed yet, or
no, he's out anywhere.
There too. So you could, and the Niners have been really keen on wait out free agency to the point that they play on the desperation of some of these players. Like they want to be on a team, they don't want to be left out. So I could see a Clowney coming in and having an impact, or getting signed late for a small, a smaller contract, just to say, hey, I'm going to show people on this team I can still contribute, like a 1-year deal, and then he bounces for a bigger paycheck somewhere else.
I love the move for Hargrave too, because it firmly announced. First of all, I think most people, from what I can see looking around the NFL, who grade out the free agency are like, yeah, the Hargrave to the Niners pickup was, if not the best move, it's definitely listed with all these articles among the best free agent signings. But then when a great team that was in the championship game, the conference championship, gets a dominant player in the front seven, it's a loud announcement to everybody else that this team's a Super Bowl contender. And in the AFC, with all these great quarterbacks, we know who the contenders are. In the NFC, it's really the Niners and the Eagles, and then it's like very speculative. Is it Detroit? Is it Seattle? Is there a team is it Atlanta? If they get like a Lamar, is it, that third team, that fourth team is very much kind of a question mark. So because the power structure is so thin at the top in the NFC, I think what you're looking at is the 49ers, I think, are going to play it real conservative in free agency going into the draft. I think the signings that you're seeing are all to give them greatest flexibility of what direction to go in the draft. But then after the draft, I think if they're smart, they're going to keep a little bit of cap room available for that veteran defensive end, Jason Pierre-Paul, Melvin Ingram, maybe Clowney, maybe Clark, maybe Floyd. One of these guys that's out there that they may be able to get for a song, that they may be able to get just because, you know what, you're looking around, you're 34, you haven't won a ring, or maybe you have, you're badly all about trying to win that next ring. You start handicapping out who the best teams are, and you're like, hey man, the Niners are a for sure playoff team and they're a likely Super Bowl contender. I'll go there for 1 year for $5 million because I think I might be able to get a ring and retest the market next year. The other thing is, like, if you're an edge rusher, what does an edge rusher need? A lead. You can't play on team. You're totally an edge. Most of those edge rushers don't like to play the run. So the last thing they want to do is be on a bad team where they're sitting there getting the run down their throat, in the fourth quarter. They want to pin their ears back and see dollar signs in the fourth quarter. And the only way you do that is if you get on a team that wins. So I think more so than the other positions, the edge rusher is looking for situational football that favors them piling up stats. And that totally jives with what the Niners have as far as a Super Bowl favorite. I mean, the Niners are going to either be the first choice or the second choice out of the NFC after the draft, I think, to go to the Super Bowl. And all these defensive ends are going to see that. And I think they'll be fighting each other for, I'll say this. If I was a defensive end and I didn't have guaranteed money coming my way, I'd show up at the Niner doorstep with a contract and just be like, hey, I'm here. And I brought my own deal. And it's pretty reasonable. Should we sign it? It's like, don't even wait for them, because if you get to the 49ers and you're Clowney, I bet you there's a half dozen sacks in the second half of the year where the Niners have a lead and you're pinning your ears back, and and then you can test free agency next year.
Absolutely.
So I think they're in a good spot, actually, really.
Yeah, I think they can poach a few names or late contributors. I think somebody fills the role of like what D Ford had where he wasn't on the field a ton. They used him sparingly. But when he was there, he was pretty effective. I think Clowney can fit into that. I think Floyd can fit into that. And yes, it is a Mortal Kombat arcade.
Yeah. Drew works for Mortal Kombat, and so he's got Mortal Kombat. Now, it's there, but how often do you actually step up to it and play?
3-4 times a week.
Okay.
You got a rough meeting or something, and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna mute all this nonsense. I'm gonna go kill some things, and then I'm gonna come back and get back to work. Here we go. So it's cool. I just get to spin the chair, stand up, get some play in. Sometimes I'll challenge the kid for garbage duty. Mom will yell out, "Someone take out the garbage," and I'm like, on the box. Let's go see who's taking out the trash. And awesome. I wipe the floor with him, and he takes the trash out.
Now, did you ever see what is that movie where the guy it's a movie couples retreat, where the guy's like, the tall guy, who's the tall guy who's really funny in that, and he worked on Guitar Hero, and he has a Guitar Hero deal battle with this guy, and he doesn't tell him that he sells Guitar Hero. And then Vince Vaughn. I think it's Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
He's the tall one.
Who's the guy from Wedding Crashers with Owen Wilson?
It's Vince Vaughn.
Vince Vaughn, yeah. So it's Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn in Couples Retreat sells the game on the guitar, and basically they battle it out on the in the movie, and it's classic. It's absolutely classic.
I'm not saying I've done that.
Could you the way that people could go to a park and pick up games and take people's money, could you roll into an arcade and be like, "Hey, I'll play you some Mortal Kombat for money"?
Maybe a few years ago. I mean, kids nowadays are ridiculous, but yeah, I mean, there were times that I would get on an arcade and just stare at my opponent's face the whole time, and I was playing by sound. And just looking at him and pulling off all the moves and just staring at him going, what? And I'm just kicking his ass. And he's just get frustrated and running off the machine. That's one of the greatest, when you just get somebody to rage quit on an actual arcade machine. It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's funny you say rage quit, because when I, during the pandemic, my kids would be like, "Dad, we're all stuck in the house. Why don't you play video games with us?" And I'm like, I don't play video games because I'm shitty at them, but I'll try. So we're starting to play Madden, right? And then all of a sudden I started mastering a couple things. And one of the things that I was mastering was I was finding like some run plays that I could just run at will. And I was going no huddle. I was running and going no huddle and just continuing to run. And like, if he went right, I went left. He went left, I went right. I mean, I start beating down my son, and he picks up the thing, slams it down, and walks off. And my other son's like, "Wow, you just got Chris to rage quit." And he's telling his buddy, "My dad just got my brother to rage quit on Madden."
That's awesome.
He no-huddled him to death, man. It was sick.
I do it the other way around, where I'll sit down. The kids are like, "Hey, you want to play the game with me?" I sit down, and I'm like, yeah, that's fine. It's something I'm good at, or I think I'm good at. And he's been practicing, and he didn't tell me. And I get down, and he just starts mopping the floor with me. And I just, at some point, my version of quit, being I'm the dad, is I just very quietly like set down the controller, go clean your room, and it's over. We're out of it. I'm over this. Stop making me feel bad. Get out of here. Do something productive.
Do you understand the popularity of Twitch and watching people play video games? Because like, maybe I'm just the wrong age group, but I wouldn't mind playing a game. I don't mind having my kids play a game. I don't know that I would go on Twitch and watch this guy play that guy in a video game as entertainment.
I
know that it's. Do you understand the whole genre of that and of doing that? I mean, what's the attraction of that? Is it about making yourself better? at the
Not
game?
really. It's more of a social thing than anything else. And in many cases, I think the game is a centralized interest that bring people there and the people stick for their personality, right? It's very much like what you're doing on YouTube. Live streams go, everybody's interested in the Niners, but they end up sticking around and coming back because of you or the guests that you have on. I think it's very much similar to that, and there is kind of a community aspect because just like this, we have the chat going on and everything else. It is more of a social thing. The game is kind of just that centralized thing that bring people together.
That's
So
interesting.
I think it's a lot like that. But yeah, the popularity of that blew me away. When I first saw it, I was like, why are we doing that? And then I'm here watching Larry and Dan and Rye and Cy. I'm doing the same thing. Just our video game is the Warriors and Niners, right? So
Right.
it's not too different from what we're doing.
Chris
Just my
Walsh
opinion.
Some people are there for the streamer. Think of it like people here to watch or hear you, Larry. Okay.
Yeah.
I get you. I get that. But I mean, I don't know. What I'm doing here is like, I'm giving you my opinion and I'm trying to do research so I have a more informed opinion. And then I'm trying to bring people on who have their own opinions, and hopefully you hearing me discuss my opinions and their opinions, and then you have your opinions, and that may change your mind. And if we can bring anything to the table, I don't know. It's just like advancing the conversation. I kind of look at this, and maybe it's the same thing. Maybe I'm answering my own question here, but I kind of look at the whole stream thing as kind of like a bar room. Like if we were hanging in a bar, we'd be talking about, hey man, did you see that Warrior game last night? Hey, are they going to trade Trey Lance? What'd you think of Hargrave? I saw this, I heard that, and it's just kind of, the only difference is we're not sitting here throwing cocktails back. But other than that, or maybe we are. I mean, I've got my water. But you know
I'm
what I'm
not
saying?
telling you
It's like,
what's in the cup.
it's kind of that. It's kind of like, the kind of the organic. I think as time went on, when people don't want like to be like lectured, nor do they want this like I'm the narrator talking down. They want this kind of free flow of ideas and kind of a little bit more organic conversation that can go in a number of different directions. I think that's more interesting to people than just like, I'm gonna tell you. I never loved I don't know, maybe it's me. I've never loved the one person sports talk show. I never did. Never liked it. Even though I knew Rome and I know JT the Brick, and I heck, Damon I thought was really good by himself. I never wanted to do a show by myself. I enjoyed it when I did it, but if you would all those years doing shows by myself at CanBR, if you had said, "Hey, would you like to have a co-host?" Sure. You know what I mean? I'd much rather have a co-host. Why? Because it's much more natural to be like having a dialogue between two people than it is to be like posing something to just kind of the audience out there. Some people are really good at it too. I never felt comfortable. I always felt like it just felt very, very much like almost like a performance, as opposed to, hey, I'm just hanging out talking sports with my friends.
Yeah, I think most sports talk radio figured that out in the mid to late 90s, right? Where you saw all these. You used to have somebody like Ralph Barbieri on KNBR. He was a solo act for quite a long time, and then they paired Tolbert with him, and the show just took on a whole new life of its own. You got Rod Brooks and what's his name from the Warriors announcer. Fitz. Yeah, you got Fitz and Brooks there. I mean, they got paired up. You got paired up with Radnich at some point. These 2-man, 3-man teams, way more entertaining because it's just more natural talking. And how long can someone just go on their own and just before they just repeating themselves? They're boring. You switch a channel.
It's hard. I'll say this. And there's times when I'm like, I'm very self-critical. But there's times when I'm just like, freak, I'm just droning on about something, and it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, nobody wants to hear anybody drone on about anything. You know what I mean? So it's kind of,
right.
It's kind of You can get into bad patterns. Chris Wall says, I'm a gamer. I'm gaming right now with my son asleep across my lap. But for me personally, I'm not into watching other people play games unless they're talking game design. I'm an indie game DEV or
Dev.
independent game developer.
Yeah, indie game dev. Yeah, they make smaller games. What's up,
Oh,
Chris?
what is it? What's
It's
he
a
saying?
indie game dev, yeah, game developer. You know, they work on a lot of smaller games. You have stuff like us who were Warner Brothers, you know, or you have EA or you have Activision, you know, Blizzard, Take-Two. You have all these different big companies that are multi-million dollar kind of efforts in their games, and then you have indie developers, which are kind of a group of people that get together. You know, it could be very small teams that are, you know, south of like, you know, $10 million, you know, games, and they put them out through Steam or they put them out through the, you know, the first party stores on Sony or you know, Sony or Microsoft. Much smaller things, much more focused kind of development, but really good. So many creative things come out of the indie game space. I think you have a lot more freedom creatively to do that. If let's say we're, you know, putting out Mortal Kombat or you're putting out Call of Duty, you kind of know what lane you're going to be in. And so you have to satisfy the legacy gamers who have been with you for 30 years, and you can't really take a ton of chances. Where on the indie game side, you know, you're kind of developing it from the ground up. It's a new IP in most cases. And you have a lot of creative freedom that way. So, but you have a lot less stability, right? So you could make the game, you could put it out, you could spend 10 million bucks on it, not do all that well. You know, so it's a trade-off all the way around.
Chris says, I'm a solo game
Oh.
developer, a one-man show, doing my own coding, art, sound, etc.
Oh, well. That is a unique flower all to its own.
Really?
Those solo guys are insanely talented people. Drop the name of your game, Chris. I would love to see it.
Love to check it out.
Yeah.
How do you guys get pitched? Like you have a whole company that's working on Mortal Kombat.
Haley.
Do you guys get how often do new games enter the deal, and how do you get your game from A to Z? How do you get it
Oh,
from
man.
like, hey, it's just in my head and now it's total reality? Is it take millions and millions of dollars? Does it take hours and hours of development, research?
Years of
What is that
hours.
process like? And is it something you see? Do you see
Yeah.
have you seen games that somebody has pitched that maybe you guys said no to, or somebody didn't take off, but then you saw that game emerge somewhere else down the road?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was at EA back in 2004, 2005, and there was a game pitched to us, and I because of the time, there was a game pitched to us that we decided not to pick up. 7 years later, it ended up surfacing as a free-to-play game on the PlayStation and Xbox. We're like, hey, man, I remember that game. That thing came to us. You know, yeah, a lot of the larger companies have, you know, divisions that are looking for co-development situations or co-publishing situations. Yeah, and we, you know, obviously, you know, every game developer gets pitched constantly. One thing I tell a lot of people, we're never short on ideas. We're short on manpower. We're short on money. We're short on, you know, creative people to execute those ideas, because it's hard. It's really hard to get a game done. Average development time for games nowadays, if you're talking to AAA, is probably anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 years on average, but it's not uncommon to see games go, you know, 4 or 5, 6 years in development before they end up seeing the light of day. And then we're talking, you know, tens of millions of dollars in development spend, and then you have the marketing on top of it. Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, to make a AAA game nowadays for anything less than $100 million, it's I mean, that's impressive. To be able to pull it off. The cost of games have gone up, the time it takes to make them, the demands of the consumer are always going up, and we're, you know, as developers are packing more and more and more and more content into those things. So it's yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean, seeing a game go from just an idea or a back of the napkin kind of concept, you know, you go through so many different stages, and then you hit a point of like, is this game actually worth doing? go through a green light process, then you get approved on budgets, and then then you start actually going into production and actually making the game. And then nowadays, it used to be, back in the day before patches and DLC and live support, you would ship the game and you're done. You're like, okay, good to go. Nowadays, it's like shipping the game is just phase one. Now you have 2 to 3 to 4, years in some cases. And some have went, like, if you look at World of Warcraft, what are we at, year 20 now of support and constant development and, feeding players content. It's a lot of work. I mean, they went from these sprints to these marathons, and it's kind of like the train is always moving and we just have different stops at these stations. So it's a lot of work. It's funny to dispel the image people have in their head of like, oh, you're a game developer. Yeah. I don't have my feet up on my desk with a controller in my hand. In fact, I'm lucky if I get an hour a week of actually playing the game that I'm making. It's a lot of work, and oftentimes people are siloed into their disciplines. They're really close to the stuff that they're working on, so it's hard to detach and then see the whole product at once and then get back into it. That's not a luxury often afforded to very many developers, especially the larger the product.
In a lot of ways, because it's like it's kind of like having perspective. You can have perspective as a host, let's say, on other hosts. It's hard to have perspective on yourself. And I would imagine if you get so deep into these games, it's hard to have perspective on where the game is as far as how it's being received by the public, other than the data. Chris Walsh is at Digital Drew. He says, I'll share it when it's done or presentable. And then he said, Larry, a key word in that realm is prototyping. If you have a bare bones project with rough artwork, even simple shapes, but it's fun to play, then your project is on the right track. And then Jacob is asking if you're working on Mortal Kombat. And yes, Digital Drew works on Mortal Kombat. And then Jacob asks this question. He says, any new information on the new Mortal Kombat? What kind of information do you think Jacob is looking for there when he asks that question?
Oh, everybody's always asking us if we're working on the next game.
That's just because
it's the number one question.
Really?
Like, hey, when's the next game? I'm like, I don't know. I'm over here doing this stuff. Don't ask me those questions. I can't answer even if I wanted to.
Niner Gang says, Larry, what's going on, brother? You need to have a call-in show. Would love to chat with you. Love the content, brother. You can call in right now. How did it work? I put the call-in thing in the chat, and then you just click that and all of a sudden you're in?
Yeah, you just go into a green room area, fill in your name, and you just hop into that. One thing that I've always had an issue with, because I've called in multiple times, you'll put it in there, but then it'll scroll by and you can only go up so much. So if you want lines of people lining up, you probably have to spam it or put it into the description of the YouTube video, and then it'll stay there, and then people can just hop in.
I gotcha. I'll put it in one more time for people if they want.
Yeah.
But I do love doing the video calls because it is really cool. We did this during like right around the playoff time. And, it's like, boom, 2:00 in the afternoon, throwing it in there. And it's like, hey, here's a guy walking his dog in East LA. And here's a lady sitting at her computer in New York City. And here's a guy in Napa who's like, sitting on his patio. And I don't know, there's just something that's really cool about the video calls, because it's like it's a little bit, it's more interesting than just a regular radio call, I think, because you get the background. Like, as you have a background in the back, immediately people are like, hey, what's going on there? Why does he have a video game in the background? Then they get to know your story, then they get to know a little bit about where you're coming from, now your perspective. You know what I'm saying? It's different than just, hey, I'm in Burlingame walking down the street and I'm calling you on the radio. It's very, that's obviously, we're visual people. Maybe that's why.
Yeah. But, one final question before I get out of here, Larry, because I got yet another meeting to hop into. Busy day.
Almost 3:15 in Chicago.
Yeah. So on the opposite side, I did hear a rumor surfacing about Lamar coming to the Niners, and I was very appreciative of the laugh track you kept spamming Dan with last night when he kept bringing it up. I was like, hit him again, Larry. I don't think he gets it. Is there any truth to that at all? Do you think that there's a draft day swing of something to where you could see the Niners saying, yeah, we're falling victim to the curse of the win now mindset of like, yeah, I know that we have the future in Trey, we have the future in Purdy, but we're going to have to make that. We're going to have to pull the trigger.
Okay, well, I would love to say nothing to it, don't see it, not happening. But there's two things we really don't know. We don't know if the Niners know or don't know or are concerned about the severity of that elbow. Like, for all we know, Brock Purdy can't play this year, and they're just not telling us. So, or maybe they know that there's a 25% chance that he can't play this year, and they're not telling us. So they've got Brock, who may or may not be ready to play this year. Then the other thing we don't know, I definitely think the Sam Darnold pickup is, without a doubt, it's a hedge. It's a hedge either on Trey's development or Brock's health. So the fact that they hedge with Darnold makes me wonder what are they hedging on? The other thing we don't know is we don't know how they feel about Trey Lance and how they feel about Trey Lance long-term and how they feel about Trey Lance short-term. But let's just say that the 49ers are in a situation where they suspect Brock could be out half the year. They don't want to say anything. And they don't believe in Trey Lance. Then I could picture them trading Trey Lance and a pick to Baltimore for Lamar. I could, because in their mind, Trey Lance's value, if they don't like him or if they've seen some flaw in his game, his throwing, his whatever, if they feel like he's going to be worse before he's better, then he may not, his timeline for playing and succeeding may not jive with their timeline for winning. So, you got to remember that they're going to prioritize their timeline for winning. So if they don't know about Brock and they do know about Trey and they don't like what they see from Trey short term, and they feel like Trey, like I think Trey is not going to be good enough to win a Super Bowl with this year. But I do think that Trey is going to emerge at some point, year 2, year 3, year 4 of playing somewhere he's going to play. But can he play here? And I think when John Lynch at the Combine said, Trey's got to play and we're ready to win now, the implication was clear. The implication, he didn't say it, but the implication is he's not ready to play now. And we're ready to win now. And he needs to play. And that's the challenge. So I've read into that every way imaginable. Other people are not getting what I got out of that. So maybe I'm reading that wrong. I'll grant you that. But I get the sense that the 49ers, that I'm not saying that Jed York has told John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, you win this Super Bowl, you're done. But they know that they'll be judged on getting that Super Bowl ring. And so they don't have an endless amount of time to get it done. They probably have a finite time. And I would say that time's probably about a 3 to 5 year window that they probably have. So if you feel like Brock's health is uncertain and Trey's development is uncertain, and you've got Lamar right there, the Niners don't want to give away any more years to anything involving the quarterback. So if you're not convinced that you can win with Trey, or if you're kind of have your doubts and you don't know about Brock's health, then maybe trading Trey for Lamar makes sense. I personally would be deathly afraid of that trade because I think Lamar's played his best football. I think he's injury prone. I think he's going to cost a ton. And I think Trey eventually is going to get it. And I think Trey's more of a pocket passer with better passing skills. So, but I do think it's possible. Because if they think Trey's going to develop, but it's going to take 2 years, they're not going to give him those 2 years. I'm convinced of that. And if they think Brock's going to be healthy, but it may not be for 2 years, they're not going to give away this year to Sam Darnold or Trey Lance's development. They're not. They're going to try to win a Super Bowl this year because they're one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFC, and they know it. And so that, in a weird way, I think Lamar could be viable. What do you think?
All right.
Do you like Lamar or you don't?
I like young Lamar. I don't like
2 years ago Lamar.
Two years ago when he's moving, when he was able to move around, when he didn't have the injury history, He was also more accurate during that time. So I think the dual threat opened up their offense quite a bit. I think he could do a ton. Can you imagine young Lamar with CMC, IU, Kittle, Debo? That would just be a nightmare to any defense in the NFL to try to cover that. Like, who are you going to cover at that point? But this version, yeah, I'm not sure. And I'm not sure he carries with him the accuracy that we saw even out of Purdy that makes all the playmakers.
He was 62% completion percentage this year, and he had 11 turnovers in 12 games.
Yeah, I don't think that gets it done. I think he has a higher ceiling than anybody that they have on the roster right now. But at the same time, it also blows up their budget. Blow it right out of the water. The reason that you can keep somebody like Debo and CMC and Ayuk and Kittle, and then on the other side of the ball, you got Warner, you just were able to sign Hargrave, and Bosa is going to need an extension. The only way that this team ticks like that and moves is because you're not wrapping up $30 to $40 million in a single position that can go out on one blown block. Right. And if they keep that quarterback room young, and if Purdy can play, I think that's the right play. But I've seen too many organizations throughout every sport fall into the idea of win now and make dumb moves that just don't keep them in a position of power for years. They sell out to try to do it now. When has that ever worked? I mean, I think the Rams are the most recent example, but we saw what happened to them. They just absolutely imploded. It's like giant contracts, aging players, and they have no future and no picks to rebuild either. So I know in the short term, people are, oh, that's the way. Is it? How about we ask that question again? I don't think people are as high on that strategy. It will get you a ring, but it will not get you rings. And I think this organization is focused on rings, and they've come close, and I think they can do it with Purdy. I'm less convinced of Trey, but I think you blow everything up if you go after Lamar.
I think it's well said. I'll let you go. The part about it, and this is where I've thought about this. It's like, people have said, do you want that 6th ring? Damn right. We've been waiting 30 years for the 6th ring. Got to go back to 94. But I would not trade the Rams approach for the Niner approach. The Rams got 5 or 6 of the best players in football. They got it done. They got the ring. But this last year, they missed the playoffs. This year, they're shopping Stafford. 2 years from now, they'll have no Ramsey, no Stafford, no Aaron Donald, and they'll probably be staring at 3 or 4 years of cap problems. And I'd rather do it the way the Niners do it, which is go with depth, have a deep roster every year and try to make a run at it. And even if you fall short, I'd rather be a Super Bowl contender for, let's say, 5 to 10 years than win a Super Bowl and not contend for more than 2 years and then have 6, 7 down years. I don't like that peaks and valleys. I don't think it's good for the team to shut it off. Hey, we'll catch up with us in 2025. No, I'd rather do it the way they're doing it, which is, and I mentioned it to Ryan, they have 16 guys in their second year. The arrow's pointing up. I think you're going to see a huge improvement from the 49ers based on that depth. And that's the route I would go. And yeah, if it doesn't result in a Super Bowl, man, that sucks because I want that Super Bowl, but I think that's the more responsible way to build.
So. Yeah, I would rather be competitive every year than win it all one year and then have to deal with 5-6 years of rebuild. Nobody wants to be there. We might get as frustrating as it is to get to the NFC Championship, year after year, or make it to the Super Bowl, just still fall short. I'd rather that than 1 year a party and then nothing. That's my take.
All right, brother.
But
have a good night. Have a good day in Chicago. Thanks for those codes for my son. I appreciate it. He's not here to thank you. I'll thank you for him. But no problem. To you. Hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Awesome. Take care.
Digital Drew hanging in Chicago. Bomber T says Digital Drew is spot on. Spot on. All right. I starred. Vish showed me how to star the the comments I like. So now I'm a starring fool. All right, let me roll through some of these before we get out of here. Fish and chips. I think Trey needs to be on the field every day with someone ASAP. I think everybody agrees with that. Kid can't sit and watch. He's got to play. On this team, can he play? Artur Gazarian. Artur, what do you think? Pretty good. Pretty good pronunciation there. He says, I love that you interact with your fans this way, Larry. Respect. Are you kidding me? I enjoy it. I absolutely enjoy it. This is actually kind of the best part about doing this. Artur says, would love to call in one of these days as well. Please do. Please do. Remix channel. Hey, Larry, can you get Joe Staley on the show? I'll try. Joe Staley's terrific. Fish and chips. Why did we draft Trey? He has tremendous upside, but surely at the time he wasn't a fit because we had just been to a Super Bowl and rookies need 2 years solid snaps to at least with Trey's college experience. Yeah, it's in hindsight, it doesn't look wise. It doesn't. I think Trey's a great kid and has a great future, but this was a huge roll of the dice based on how limited he played, how limited his experience was. And now we're seeing that it's going to take some time. And do the Niners have the patience? And will they endure the bumps in the road? I don't know. It's a weird situation. Brock's sitting there now. If he's healthy, he's ready to play. And Trey needs to play and probably isn't ready to win. So it's a tough one. Chris Wall says, I think it's just more engaging with two people talking about talk shows. Having the variety of guests between shows creates more variety, different perspectives on the same topics, etc. I totally agree with you. Fish and Chips says, I'm here because I've been listening to Larry since I was in diapers. Slightly exaggerated, of course. Diapers? Now you're making me feel old. Jedi, it's all about the chat for me. LK is good. I got my guys, but a good live chat can turn any show into gold. I kind of agree with that one. Giant Niner fan. Brad has way more football knowledge than MM. Who's MM? Oh, Matt Mayoko. I like Matt Mayoko, but he's a company yes man. I want a beat writer who tells it like it is. More like Larry. Matt Mayoko doesn't have a channel. He's lazy, Larry, lazy. No, he's not. Matty's a good guy. Brad, I mean, the only difference is Brad played football. Brad was a offensive lineman. He played the game. It's the only difference, really. Matty does a good job. Eric Hernandez, Giants baseball. Together, we put you to sleep. Yeah. Come on, Giants. Get somebody interesting. Chris Wall, live in California for 25 years, but have never been to Tahoe. Chris, what? Wow. Now, Chris, I'm not a skier per se, but dude, you got to get to Tahoe in the summer. Oh my God. I mean, it's just an incredible spot. You got 90-degree temperatures, but the lake is so cold that it always stays like about, 78 to 85. So it's, if you get away from the lake, it's like easily 90, 95, but around the lake, it's like 80. It's perfect. No humidity, no bugs, cool mornings, cool evenings, warm afternoons, gambling. I used to jog down to the casino, bet on my baseball games, come back, take the kids to the beach, then go to the Safeway, barbecue something on the patio, have a couple cocktails, go inside, watch your baseball games that you just bet on. It's heaven, man. I love Tahoe in August, July or August, but definitely August. The consistency of the weather in August is incredible. Ruben Rodriguez. Hi, Larry. Longtime Niner fan. I anticipate the team to trade Trey Lance at the draft and some comp picks to move up in the draft. Hate that Lance never got a chance, and I don't think it changes this year. Ruben, I don't necessarily think that you're wrong. You might be right. Artur says, look at Larry using the star comment option. He just recently learned from Vish. Good job, Larry. Thank you. I'm learning. Look at the growth. EMA says, where should I submit the instrumentals? I mean, EA, God, I don't even know. I would say DM me on Twitter or on any social media deal. And then I can give you my cell and you can just text me directly, something like that. How does that work for you? We got this one from 49er Minded. Jesse Naylor is awesome. He's not just awesome. He's here tonight at 6:00 Pacific on the Krueger Show. So tune in for that. Artur says Larry needs to hook up with Spotify. Great podcast. I think I'm pretty much already on Spotify. Am I not? I think you can get this on Spotify. Atomic Testicles. Damon had a Ike sandwich. Larry didn't. Ooh. Now you're pissing me off. No, I'm just joking. But I did say to Ike, I'm like, come on, Ike. I was here before Damon. Give me a sandwich. I was here before Ike. And I talked to him about it. I said, you know what my sandwich would be? If I could have an Ike sandwich. Now, Ike's does do a nice job. But my sandwich at Ike's would be the Thanksgiving dinner sandwich. It would be white meat turkey, like real carved turkey, not cold cuts, but like real fresh turkey with a little bit of stuffing, a little bit of cranberry, and a little bit of turkey gravy. That's it on bread. The Thanksgiving Krug Show Ike sandwich. Got this one from C-Dub. How likely is it the Niners would package multiple threes to move into the first round? Could it be done? Would that only get you a second round pick? I think it's only going to get you a second. I don't think that gets you a number one. I think if you traded, you could go check. You can type in to Google draft pick value chart, and there's two different charts, and you can see. And basically, the way it works is every pick in the draft is assigned a value, and then whatever pick you're trading for has to equal in value the picks that you're trading, or if it's more value, then you're getting a great deal. If it's less value, then they're getting a great deal. Do you see what I'm saying? So you want to try to use that value chart, but I don't think number threes get you into the first round. I think it might get you at best into the top of the second round. But look it up. Fish and Chips says, Mr. Joe says, why does Brad hate on Grant? Don't know, bro. Don't know. Ask Brad. Don't know. Don't want to get involved. Fish and Chips, keep starring the chats, Larry. The many, many good comments disappear into the ether. No, you're totally right. That's why I'm saving them. We got this one from Antonio. Live in Texas my whole life. Never cheered for the Cowboys. Niners. Niner gang. There you go. I like that. Jack Lee says, still think it's the location of the stadium. That's why there's been such bad luck. Who won the most Super Bowls first anyways? What? It's not the location of the stadium. My God, we got to stop blaming the move to Santa Clara. My God. First of all, they're not moving back. Second of all, the stadium that they used to play in has been leveled. Third of all, the weather in Santa Clara is better, I think, than the weather in San Francisco. And this is from a San Francisco native. I know it's hot in the sun in the fall on the sun side. There's no question. But still, I think the stadium's nice. I like it. I don't have a problem getting in. I don't have a problem getting out. There's no raccoons running up the escalator as I'm walking out. Waveware says, Larry, you're asking for music? I'm a musician. All right, Waveware. Oh, somebody said they wanted to have us debut some of their music on our channel. And I said, sure, but just get a hold of me and we'll make it happen. Chris Wall said on the Tahoe subject, I've been living in DFW, Texas what's DFW stand for? Dallas Fort Worth, I guess, for the last 12 years. No regrets, though. I love it here, and there are tons of Niner fans here, too. We take over Jerry World in Arlington. One of my favorite sports memories of all time, January 95, my buddy Pete Kepner was in Dallas. I told him, Pete, I'm rolling through Dallas. He's like, man, we got to go to the Niners-Cowboys game. And in 1995, that was a huge deal. Niners were the defending Super Bowl champions. Both teams were dynasties. It was incredible. Fly out to Dallas, had just an amazing weekend. But as I'm getting to Dallas, it hits me. Niners are 13.5-point underdogs. Steve Young's out. Elvis Gerbach starting this game. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, God dang it. We're going to go out with all of his buddies Friday night, Saturday night, and I'm going to have to hear an earful about how the Cowboys are going to kick the Niners' ass. And how am I going to handle this? I got to have a game plan here. And so sure enough, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, well, I guess I could just be the guy who's like, yeah, I kind of know we're going to get beat. Yeah. I could be that guy. Or I could just be like, fuck no, the Niners are winning on Sunday. Mark it down, bees. I mean, so I thought of the two options and I'm like, what do I want to do for 2 nights? Do I want to sit there and sheepishly say, yeah, I know you guys are going to kick us around. Yeah, we're probably going to lose. Or am I just going to tell them all they're high and just say, you know what? We're here to kick ass. The champs are in town, And so I went with, of course, the latter. And I talked so much trash. Friday night, Saturday night. All my buddies' friends, he's like, dude, you're gonna eat so much crow tomorrow. You realize they're 2 touchdown underdogs. I said, I know, but I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and tuck tail between my legs for 2 nights and sit here, oh yeah, the Cowboys this, the Cowboys that. At that point in history, I hated the Cowboys. So I just said, nope, Niners are kicking ass. We're kicking ass. We're rolling in with Gerbach, and we are going to kick your guys' ass. And then we got to Sunday, and we didn't even have tickets. So we had to go buy them on the secondary market, as they call it. I spent $395 in 1995 to sit on the 50-yard line. We're walking in right at the opening kick. 2 plays later, Jerry is in the end zone on a slant and go. Took it to the house. Next play, sack, Ricky Jackson throws up an interception to Merton Hanks. He takes it back. Pick 6, 14-0 Niners. There's another turnover. It's 21-0 Niners. The Niners got up in that game. Derek LaVille scored at halftime to make it 31-7 49ers. He did a high step deal into like a Dion high step deal into the end zone. And I had the Niner hat, the t-shirt. I'm on the 50. I just start popping my t-shirt. I turned around to the people and I'm like, goodbye. Thanks for coming. 31-7. Champs are in town. Thanks for coming. I'm just getting pelted. I got beer. I got cups. I got peanuts. People are throwing stuff. They're swearing at me. Security's coming over. Sir, you're causing a ruckus. Awesome. An incredible moment. One of my greatest sports memories of all time. And we're walking out of that stadium. My buddy Pete goes, Krug, how did you know the Niners were going to win? I said, Pete, I didn't. But I'm not going to sit here and tuck tail and go, aw shucks for 2.5 days. I'm not wired that way. That's not the way I operate. I got to roll in with some confidence, win or lose. Either way, I'm flying out of here tonight. I don't have to be here to take it. He's like, well, man, he's like, all my friends are super mad. And they're like, man, that guy knows his football. I'm like, yeah, well, good. There you go. It was an incredible weekend in Dallas. And I'll tell you this, we had a breakfast at a place called Papados. Just this massive seafood emporium, huge restaurant. Like you couldn't have thrown a baseball from one end of this restaurant to the other end. Just an awesome spot. And I would definitely, and I guess it's a chain. I guess there's a bunch of them like Papadios and Papa this, Papa that, but Papados seafood in Dallas. It was either that or Randy White's place when we went to Papados. But because the Niners just absolutely wasted the Dallas Cowboys that day, I have a special place in my heart for Papados. The Niners did, of course, lose in the playoffs that year to Green Bay. Dallas did go on to win the Super Bowl later that year in Arizona over the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was the year that they had no Jimmy Johnson, but they did have Barry Switzer, and they got it done. So ultimately, I guess Dallas had the last laugh. But on that day, it was all Niners. Fish and chips. Do the Niners have a logo curse? They changed it in 95. Did they? I don't remember them changing the logo. They went to that terrible 49er thing, and then they cut it. Then they went back to their original logo. The logo they have now is the logo that they had in the 70s when I was a little kid. Giant Niner fan. Artur, rumor has it he traded his Tahoe in for that Prius. Don't you even go there. Don't you even go there. I don't drive a Prius. I do drive a Tahoe. Artur says, legendary Larry story time, my favorite time of the show. Mark Graves, buying tickets from guys in sweats? I don't know what that means. I think I'm missing that one. Clarsard, don't be that guy, Larry, especially giving the Cowboys respect. Chris Wall says, that was a great story, Larry. Thank you. Mark Graves, too bad they didn't have camera phones back then. Oh, I know. It would have been incredible. And I'll say this, the Cowboy fans, that's not like going to the LA Coliseum for old Raider games. That's not like the Stick. That's not like a lot of places. The fans in Dallas are very, it's like, I mean, they're playing Donna Summer music. They're playing disco. It's not a fighting crowd. I mean, it might be in the corners of the stadium somewhere, but for the most part, it's not a fighting crowd. It's a very, people get dressed up in Dallas. They get dressed up to go to a bar. They get dressed up to go to a restaurant. They're very polite to one another. I noticed that. Chris Wall said, yeah, hell yeah. Oh yeah, I've had Papados. There you go, Papados. Bomber T. That story never gets old. Oh, now I feel bad. Now you've heard it twice. Here we go. Antonio says Papado. There you go. It's got a French ending there. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Not for the day, but just for this live stream. Thanks to everybody who was part of the live stream. Thanks, of course, to Ryan Hensley, who's fantastic. Catch us at 6 o'clock. The great Jesse Naylor will be in the house. Jesse doing his thing. Catch it at 6. See you until then.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need to hassle. Yeah.